The story starts in the flashback where down in what looks like a dungeon block with iron bars everywhere, two guys are staring each other down. The guy in the apron reaches his hand out focused. He tells the other guy that they're doing this and this is going to be the finale. The swordsman just grins, looking pretty beat up himself. He admits that he's reaching his limit too, but he's not backing down. He invites the apron guy to join him for one last fun dance. The apron guy realizes his magic power is running dangerously low, but he knows he can't stop now. He snaps back at the swordsman, telling him flat out that he has zero interest in dancing with other dudes. The swordsman lunges forward with his blade, laughing it off. He calls the apron guy cold-hearted for refusing the dance, and then screams at him to just die. The apron guy isn't having it. He summons a blade of pure light from his hand and shouts right back that the swordsman is the one with the attitude problem. They both lose it, screaming at the top of their lungs. The swordsman leaps into the air for a downward strike while the apron guy charges forward to meet him head-on. As he rushes in, the apron guy thinks of the people waiting for him. Visions of two girls smiling fill his mind. He swears to himself that there is no way he's going to lose this fight. In the final split second, both of them are just roaring in each other's faces, putting everything they have left into this last clash. The scene completely shifts from the fantasy battle to a cold night on a modern street. A guy in a business suit is lying face down on the road, totally motionless. In his last moments, he thinks about how completely unreasonable this world is. Lying there on the asphalt, the salaryman reflects on a bitter truth. He realizes that no matter how much hard work you put into things, sometimes that effort just never gets rewarded. People on the street start panicking. An older man rushes over and asks if he's okay, while someone else calls for help in the background. As his consciousness fades out, the dying man makes one final wish. If he actually gets a next time, he wants a life where his effort is properly paid back. Moving on to a new scene, we see a peaceful countryside with a large estate. The narration notes that his wish was definitely granted, but maybe not exactly how he expected. Inside the house, a little toddler is tugging on a woman's dress. He looks up at her and asks his mom if he can eat a lango. A beautiful woman with short hair looks back at him. She calls him Haru and asks if he's talking about the lango fruit. Haru sits at the table and happily tells her he wants to eat it. It turns out this little kid is the salaryman from before. He explains that 4 years have already passed since he was reincarnated into this new world. He flashes back to when he first arrived. He remembers waking up right after his death, suddenly finding himself as a newborn baby in a world he didn't know at all. For a while his life was pretty simple. He describes the routine: drinking milk, sleeping, and then the endless cycle of being held by his dad while filling his diaper. We see a shot of him as a baby nursing. He admits it was kind of awkward. Even though he still had his memories from his past life, there was just no way he could fight against those basic baby instincts. Hold up. Smash like and subscribe for more hidden manga gems. Now, I dare you to comment, "I'm loving it." I bet most of you won't do it. Alright, let's continue. Haru stands outside in the fresh air, looking confident. He notes that recently his mind has finally calmed down, and he's starting to really understand himself and how this new world works. He pulls up a holographic status window in front of him. Reading the data, he realizes his full name in this life is Eberhard Karl-Heinz von Fahrenheit. Looking at the massive estate he lives in, he thinks about how he was born into a noble family. He realizes that he's suddenly a winner in life just by birthright. But the thing that really convinces him he's in another world is the magic power stat on his screen. He confirms that magic definitely exists here. He thinks back to when he first noticed the magic. Ever since that day, he's been spending all his spare time trying to manipulate it, straining his mind just to make a coffee mug wobble slightly on the table. Checking his status again, he breaks into a cold sweat. As a result of that constant secret training, his magic numbers have skyrocketed to dangerous levels that he usually has to keep hidden. He points a finger at a specific unique skill on his list. He suspects this might actually be the strongest cheat ability he possesses. He figures reincarnation usually comes with cheats, but this one is special. Reading the description for continuity is power. He sees that it guarantees effort is always rewarded and removes all growth limits. He thinks to himself that this time he truly wants his hard work to pay off. A fiery aura of determination surrounds him. He practically yells at the concept of effort itself, declaring that this time it won't betray him. Now that he knows the rules, he's ready to move. He immediately runs to a maid in the library holding up a heavy book. He asks Alyssa to read it for him. Alyssa smiles kindly, noting that it's a magic book, and suggests they start reading right from the basics. Haru is reading through the book, which outlines the mythology of this world. It says the great God granted humanity 5 miracles: reason, language, dexterous hands, and fire. And finally, the text reveals that the 5th miracle given to them was magic. The book breaks down the system further, explaining that aside from non-attribute magic, everything falls into 4 main categories: fire, water, wind, and earth. It drops a hard rule here: every single person in this world possesses one of these 4 elemental attributes. There aren't supposed to be exceptions. Alyssa chimes in to help explain the culture around it. She tells him that for commoners, they find out what element they have during the 7 Crowns ceremony held on their 7th birthday. Since Haru is a noble, though, the process is a bit different. She explains that in his case, a priest would usually come directly to the estate to perform a formal appraisal. She starts chatting about her own magic, mentioning she's a fire attribute, but she stops mid-sentence. She notices Haru suddenly freezing up, a look of pure panic hitting his face. Alyssa immediately asks what's wrong. Haru grabs his head, completely freaking out and muttering that this has to be some kind of lie. He's staring at his status screen and comparing it to what he just learned. The book explicitly said everyone has one of the 4 attributes, but when he looks at his own magic attribute line, there's nothing there, just a blank dash. The reality sinks in. He realizes that despite having insane magic power, he might not have any aptitude for elemental magic at all. Haru is sweating bullets as he tries to process what the blank status screen means. He realizes that if he really has no element, he's pretty much limited to non-attribute magic, like that impact spell, and whatever unique magic he might stumble upon. Alyssa notices he's spacing out and calls his name gently to check on him. Haru snaps out of his spiral, suddenly shouting her name and stammering a response. He shakes off the panic and gets serious. He looks at Alyssa and tells her firmly that he wants to learn everything he can. So the grind begins. From that day on, Haru throws himself into studying, sitting at his desk with piles of books and taking notes like a madman. Since Alyssa turned out to be not exactly an expert on magic theory, Haru decided to go to his mom for help instead. It turns out she was thrilled to have her son take an interest and happily agreed to help him study. Later, they're outside where his mom is demonstrating some magic, creating large stone structures in the garden while Haru watches. He admits to himself that finding out he has 0 aptitude for elemental magic was a massive shock. But then he steels himself, there's no point in crying about it. He decides his only option is to bridge the gap with pure effort. Just as he resolves this, there's a knock at his door. Alyssa calls from the hallway asking if he's in. Haru turns from his desk and tells her to come on in. Alyssa steps into the room and lets him know that lunch is ready to be served. But she adds one more thing: apparently, both the master and the mistress are asking to see him downstairs. Haru pauses in the hallway, looking a little nervous. He wonders to himself if his parents found out about the prank he pulled in the backyard. Alyssa overhears him and immediately freaks out, asking what he means by a backyard prank. Haru just gives her a mischievous smirk, not confirming anything. He laughs it off, telling her it's nothing big and that he's just hungry. But the story jumps forward here. Haru is now 10 years old. His growth isn't just physical. Haru checks his status screen and notes that his stats have shot up significantly. Specifically, his magic power is ridiculous. It's already nearly 9 times higher than his father's. He notes that while he's been trying to hide his massive power levels using magic control, he has a sneaking suspicion his parents have vaguely figured it out anyway. Later, his dad, now looking a bit older with a goatee, sits him down. He tells Haru there's someone he wants him to meet. Haru asks if the meeting is specifically for him, and his dad confirms it. His dad starts with some context, reminding Haru that their family, the frontier counts, are the distinguished nobles responsible for defending the northern part of the empire. Haru nods along, knowing this already. Then his dad drops the main point: the person Haru is about to meet might become his fiancée. Seeing Haru's reaction, his dad adds that he probably could have guessed that was coming. Haru is just stunned at the word fiancé. His dad continues, explaining that the potential partner is from a duke's family. Not only that, but they're a faction with direct blood ties to the imperial family. He gets into the specifics. The girl is the eldest daughter of the previous emperor's younger brother, and she's the same age as Haru. Because of this, they've officially started engagement negotiations. Haru just looks up at the ceiling, completely overwhelmed by how high status this arrangement is. Haru looks completely spaced out, muttering that the scale of this whole engagement thing is just way too massive for him to process. His dad tries to calm him down with a wink, telling him to relax. He assures Haru that the Duke is actually a gentle person, and more importantly, he's heard the daughter is quite cute, so Haru will probably like her. The reassurance doesn't work at all. Haru laughs nervously while his teacup rattles loudly in his hand. His dad notices the shaking and asks if he's really that tense about it. Haru snaps back that of course he is. He starts sweating, admitting that he's never had a girlfriend in his entire life, so this is uncharted territory for him. He continues his panic, practically yelling that it's unfair to expect high-level social skills from someone who is completely inexperienced and awkward at heart. His dad just laughs it off, patting Haru on the shoulder. He notes that it's rare to see his son acting so timid and withdrawn. Suddenly, his mom jumps into the conversation. She clasps her hands together and reassures Haru that he'll be totally fine because he's incredibly handsome, just like his father. His dad gets distracted immediately, calling out to his wife affectionately. Haru watches from the foreground with a deadpan expression, thinking about how exhausting this lovey-dovey couple is to be around. Haru sighs, trying to steer the conversation back to reality. He asks when this girl is actually supposed to arrive. His dad smiles and casually drops the news that she's coming today. Haru completely loses it, shouting out in shock at the sudden timeline. But his dad ignores the reaction and simply continues with the briefing. Alyssa the maid steps in with a smile, telling Haru that they've already got his outfit prepped. She suggests they head straight to the fitting, completely bypassing his panic. Haru just freezes, letting out a confused noise as the situation moves way faster than he can handle. His mom doesn't help matters either. She just smiles and says she's really looking forward to seeing how this turns out, totally ignoring his distress. Alyssa doesn't wait for permission. She tucks Haru under her arm like a piece of luggage and sprints off with him while he screams in protest. After the forced makeover, Haru stands in front of a mirror in a full formal suit. He looks at his reflection and actually sounds pretty impressed with what he sees. He starts analyzing his own looks, thinking that since his parents are such lookers, he figured he'd turn out okay. But looking at the mirror now, he has to admit, he really is a handsome guy. The narcissism moment is cut short when Alyssa checks her pocket watch and tells him it's time to go. Haru snaps out of it and agrees, ready to head out. Moving on, Haru stands at the main entrance of the mansion, flanked by his dad and Alyssa, waiting for their guests to show up. His dad looks out the door and notes that their visitors have finally arrived. A fancy carriage pulls up to the estate. His dad gives him a serious warning, reminding Haru that since the other party is a high-ranking duke, he better make sure not to be rude or mess this up. As the carriage pulls up, Haru's dad gives him one last warning to pay attention. Haru isn't sweating it, though. He's thinking about how he's already drilled all the detailed etiquette into his head, so he's ready. The carriage door swings open and a sharp-looking man with a mustache, the duke, steps out first. Right after him, a young girl steps out of the carriage. She immediately offers a polite greeting to everyone waiting. Haru starts analyzing her appearance instantly. He notices her skin is pale white like a bisque doll, and she's wearing a seriously elegant dress. He continues his visual scan, noting her golden hair shining in the sunlight and the cute leather shoes she's wearing. Finally, he locks onto her eyes, which he describes as looking like clear blue glass. The analysis stops there because Haru is suddenly hit with a massive blush. His heart skips a beat as he realizes he's looking at what seems to be a real-life princess. While Haru is having his moment, the adults handle the business side of things. Haru's dad formally welcomes the duke, and the duke replies that it's been a long time since he's been able to visit. They exchange some more pleasantries, with Haru's dad saying he's glad to see him. The duke responds warmly, noting that the northern general, referring to Haru's dad, looks as healthy and strong as ever. The duke then shifts his gaze downward, looking past the adults. He asks if the kid standing there is Eberhard. The duke turns his attention directly to the boy, mentioning that he's actually heard about him before. This catches Haru off guard, and he lets out a small breath of surprise. Continuing the conversation, the duke tells Haru's dad that rumor has it the boy is quite excellent for such a young age. Haru's dad plays it humble, replying that those words are too kind for them. Haru decides it's time to show off that etiquette he practiced. He places a hand on his chest and bows, stating it's a pleasure to meet the duke. He recites his full name, Eberhard Karl-Heinz von Fahrenheit, and politely asks for guidance despite his lack of experience. The duke seems genuinely charmed by this. He smiles and says he's happy to meet a youngster with such a promising future ahead of him. Haru accepts the compliment with a thank you. Shifting gears, the duke calls out to his daughter, telling Lily to come over to them. A polite voice answers back immediately. The girl steps forward and performs a perfect curtsy. She introduces herself as Lily Henriette von Arlesfeld Bernstein. The duke formally presents her as the eldest daughter of the Bernstein ducal house and asks them to remember her. Haru's dad responds with equal formality, thanking the duke for his politeness and asking him to look after both himself and his son. Now it's the kid's turn. Haru is sweating bullets as he nervously asks Lily to treat him well. Lily just giggles softly and grips his hand for a handshake. But then the vibe changes instantly. The adults announce that they have important adult business to discuss, so the kids need to go play by themselves. They tell the pair to get along and start walking off. Haru freezes, thinking there is no way this is actually happening. He tries to call out to them, but it's too late. Haru is left screaming in his head as his dad and the Duke walk away, leaving him alone with the girl he was just panic-analyzing. The silence between the kids doesn't last long. Lily breaks the ice, smiling and suggesting that they should get going. Haru keeps a frozen smile on his face, but inside he is completely panicking. He wonders where exactly she thinks they are going since they just met. Lily points a finger in the air and clarifies things. She says she prefers being outside, and since the garden here is so pretty, she wants to take a tour of it. This sudden shift in attitude catches Haru off guard. As she starts walking, Lily drops a truth bomb. She explains that the super polite way she was speaking earlier was just her visiting mode. Turns out, her dad scolded her into memorizing all that strict etiquette, so she was just acting the part. Hearing that makes Haru relax instantly. He looks at her with sympathy, realizing that he's not alone. All noble kids get forced to learn those stuffy manners whether they like it or not. Lily turns back to him with sparkles in her eyes. She admits she expected a frontier count's family to be scary and tough, so she was actually surprised to find out the son was so cute. Haru starts sweating, stunned that she just called him cute. They decide to drop the formalities with names too. Lily asks if she should call him Eberhard, but he suggests she just use Haru. He asks if it's okay to call her Lily in return, and she enthusiastically agrees. Now that they're on a first-name basis, Haru feels a bit more comfortable. He smiles and suggests they actually head out to the garden now. Lily doesn't waste a second. She grabs his hand with a happy cheer and starts dragging him along, ready to explore. The two of them spend the rest of the time playing together. They snack on some apples, check out the flower beds in the garden, and eventually tire themselves out enough to take a nap right there on the grass. Haru is absolutely losing it, sweat pouring down his face in shock. Meanwhile, Lily is happily turning to leave, and Haru's dad is just standing there with a proud grin on his face. Lily leans out the window of her carriage as it pulls away, waving cheerfully and calling out a final goodbye. The reason for Haru's panic becomes clear with a heavy announcement. His dad declares that the engagement is officially established. He tells Haru that it's a good thing, because now he won't have to worry about finding a bride in the future. Haru sits silently in a chair, listening as his dad continues to pat himself on the back, saying he's got a lot to be proud of. His dad sits comfortably on the couch and tells Haru he should be way more grateful. After all, he's the one who found such a cute fiancée for his son. The man is completely full of himself. He accepts the thanks, but then claims that it was actually his own power and charm that won the girl's heart, laughing loudly at his own joke. Haru starts thinking about who his father really is. He's the captain of one of the Empire's 3 great knight orders and an S-rank warrior, one of only 8 people in the entire Empire to hold that title. On top of that, he's a certified hero who actually defeated Imagine in the past. Haru realizes the weight of his position. He's going to inherit the Frontier Count title from a man like that. He knows he can't just be some kid riding on his dad's coattails and getting laughed at by everyone. He has to get stronger on his own merits. With his mind made up, Haru smiles. He starts taking off his formal jacket and announces that he's going to go train for a bit. Haru is heading out the door, but his dad stops him, pointing out that it's going to get dark soon. Haru brushes it off, promising he'll be back by dinner time. His dad looks a bit nervous, sweat forming on his face. He tells Haru that while working on self-improvement is great and all, he really shouldn't get too carried away and end up destroying the garden again. The dad awkwardly tells him to just be careful. Haru heads out but can't help wondering why his dad's response was so vague and fluffy. Out in the woods, Haru gets right to work. He's launching dark projectiles of magic that tear through the air and slam into the ground. He decides he's going to run through one full set of exercises for the day. Under the moonlight, Haru focuses, holding his hand out against a tree to steady his aim. After a burst of activity, he checks his performance. He realizes it only took him about 5 minutes this time, noting that he's definitely gotten faster compared to when he first started. Haru fires off another round, shouting as he releases the magic. He looks at the impact marks on the rock face and notes that firing his shock bullets in rapid succession is getting way easier. On top of that, his accuracy is absolutely perfect. He thinks about his unique magic, which is literally called impact. It turns out this wasn't something he just woke up with. He actually picked up the knack for it while his mom was teaching him standard magic, and he eventually managed to master it on his own. The mechanics are pretty straightforward. Basically, the impact ability allows him to generate a physical and magical shockwave from his body. The real kicker is that he can control the exact strength and timing of it whenever he wants. Haru reflects on how easy it is for him to control his magic now, but remembers that back in the beginning, it was a total nightmare. If he lost focus for even a split second, the energy would go wild and explode right in his face. It took over a year of grinding with his mom supervising every move just for him to learn the basics of mana handling and get the knack for magic. Ever since then, he's been heading up to the mountain behind the house, constantly training to boost both his precision and his destructive power. Haru clenches his fist, thinking about how addictive it is. Being able to actually feel his skills improving in direct proportion to his effort is the best feeling in the world. But honestly, the routine is starting to drag. He admits he's getting bored. Up until now, he's been strictly forbidden from leaving the estate grounds, but he figures that should change since he's turned 10 years old. Looking up at the sky, he decides he wants to expand his world and see what's out there. In the next scene, Haru is facing off against his dad. His dad admits he knows what kind of training Haru has been doing and acknowledges that Haru is strong for a 10-year-old, but he makes it clear he's not ready to lose to a kid yet. Haru smiles cheekily and hits him with some trash talk, telling his dad that since he's not exactly young anymore, he should try not to get hurt. His dad laughs it off, saying Haru has a big mouth and reminding him that he's still only 33. Haru fires back with an innocent look, reminding his dad that he's still just 10. The banter ends abruptly. His dad's eyes narrow and he tells Haru to come at him seriously. Haru doesn't hesitate, shouting as he launches his attack. The sparring match kicks off instantly. Dad launches himself into the air and brings his wooden sword swinging down with serious force, while Haru braces for impact. Haru barely manages to intercept the strike, grunting as he uses a burst of magic to deflect the heavy blow. His dad puts his weight behind the attack, testing the boy's defenses. Despite the intensity, his dad is actually enjoying himself. He flashes a proud smile and compliments Haru, telling him that was a good technique. Haru isn't celebrating though. He looks frustrated, realizing that despite his efforts, he hasn't put a single scratch on the man. He thinks to himself that he can't win against his dad with just his impact, spell, or standard close combat. He needs a different strategy. He lands low in a crouch, his mind racing. He knows he can't just keep dodging forever. He figures his only shot is to land a clean impact hit from point-blank range. Deciding to switch things up, Haru touches his hand to the dirt and shouts that he's trying something new. His dad immediately senses the ground trembling. He calls out Haru's strategy, realizing the kid is trying to shake the ground to mess up his footing. He praises the idea, but confidently yells that it won't work if he just moves faster than the tremors. He maintains his momentum, convinced he's seen through the attack and can outpace it. But suddenly his dad's eyes widen. He pauses, realizing something feels wrong. Haru smirks, he's got him. It turns out the ground shake was just a setup. While his dad is distracted by the footing, Haru unleashes his real attack with both hands, catching the older man completely off guard. The smoke is still clearing, but Haru is already celebrating. He shouts out that it's his win, convinced he nailed it. It turns out this was all part of a calculated risk. Haru knew he couldn't damage his dad with his current power level from a distance, so he intentionally baited him closer. The plan was simple: lure him in, then unleash a full-power magic blast at point-blank range. But as the dust settles, his dad is just standing there, casually dusting off his shirt. He's impressed, noting that the ground shake was just a bluff to set up the real hit. Haru, on the other hand, is freaking out. He landed a direct hit and his dad didn't take a single scratch. His dad flashes a confident grin. He tells Haru that he can't go losing to his son just yet, but he gives credit where it's due, admitting that if he were anyone else, that point-blank shot would have been a fatal wound. Haru slumps his shoulders, looking completely defeated despite the praise. He mutters that he doesn't feel like he won at all since his dad is totally fine. His dad doesn't seem to mind the near-death experience though. He smiles warmly, telling Haru he fought well to get this far and acknowledging just how strong the boy has become. Then, he reaches out and aggressively ruffles Haru's hair. The sudden head pat is rough enough to make Haru wince a little. Looking down at his son, his dad murmurs that at this rate, he probably doesn't need to worry about him anymore. Haru just stands there with a question mark over his head, not quite catching the meaning. Changing the subject, his dad reminds him that he mentioned wanting to go outside the estate grounds earlier. Haru perks up instantly, realizing where this conversation is going. His dad makes it official. He tells Haru that as long as he stays within their territory, he's granting him permission to go out freely. Haru immediately loses it, cheering in pure excitement. Haru's dad adds one condition to the permission, though he warns Haru not to go wandering off to any strange places by mistake. Haru immediately assures him that he understands. With the serious talk over, his dad looks around at the training ground. The place is a disaster zone with a massive crater and broken fences. He comments that they really did a number on the place, and Haru just awkwardly agrees. His dad sighs, saying it can't be helped. He closes his eyes and begins a chant, calling out to the spirits dwelling in the earth and the Earth Mother Goddess herself. Extending his hand, he continues the incantation, offering his magic power as fuel to command the soil and rocks to return to their original forms. Haru watches closely, recognizing the high-level spell immediately as terrain manipulation. In an instant, the magic takes hold. The crater fills itself in, the fences repair, and the ground smooths over until it looks like the battle never even happened. Haru is completely stunned. He realizes this is the first time he's ever seen his dad use elemental magic, and he can't help but whisper how amazing it is. His dad stays humble about it, though. He mentions that when it comes to earth magic, Haru's mom, Therja, is actually the superior caster, noting that her magic is on a whole other level. This prompts Haru to think about his parents' reputations. His mother, Therja, is known as the Saint of Fresh Green, a top-tier A-rank plus mage who supports the family. And as for his dad, looking heroic with his cape flowing in the wind, Haru notes that he has quite the terrifying nickname of his own, the War Demons. Reflecting on the power display he just witnessed, Haru thinks back to his parents' younger days. Apparently they formed a two-person party called the War Demon and the Saint of Fresh Green, and they really made a name for themselves back then. Haru looks at his own hand, clenching his fist. He realizes that even if he technically beats them in raw magic capacity, he couldn't win in actual combat right now. He admits to himself that he's still got a long way to go. Later, it's time for Haru to head out. His mom is in full panic mode at the door, peppering him with questions about whether he forgot anything, if he has his wallet, and even asking if his magic power is sufficient. Haru tries to calm her down, telling her he'll be fine since it's just the town right nearby. But his mom isn't letting it go that easily. She says she knows Haru is strong, but being a mom, she's still worried. His dad steps in to smooth things over. He puts a hand on Therja's shoulder, telling her that Eberhard is growing up all the time. He insists that even running into a little trouble is a necessary experience for him. Hearing that, his mom finally softens up a bit. She looks down and quietly agrees, accepting that it's time to let him go. Before Haru leaves, his dad gives him one last piece of advice. He reminds Haru that for him, these are the first humans from the outside world he'll be interacting with, so he should think of this trip as study for his future. With the lectures over, Haru waves goodbye and heads out, shouting that he's off. His dad waves back, telling him to have a good trip. But his mom can't resist one last check. She cups her hands and yells out the door for him to be careful. Already walking away into the distance, Haru shouts back a loud confirmation that he hears her. Haru steps into the main street and lets out a long breath of pure awe as he takes in the view of the city. He's completely freaking out, thinking about how amazing this is. Seeing a carriage being pulled by a dragon-like creature instead of a horse, he realizes this truly is another world. Walking through the market, the place is buzzing with energy. A butcher yells out about fresh meat arriving today, a baker advertises fresh bread, and another merchant tries to sell spices from foreign lands. Haru stops at one stall where a merchant shows him a fancy bottle. The guy claims it's a craft from the elf forest and tells Haru it's a great bargain, leaving Haru pretty impressed by the goods. Further down the road, a guy running a food stall calls out to Haru, asking the kid if he wants a skewer. Haru stops, his attention caught by the voice. He gets a whiff of the grill and thinks it smells absolutely delicious as the meat sizzles over the fire. Deciding to go for it, Haru hands over some coins and asks for 2 of them. The shopkeeper takes the payment and thanks him for the business. Haru walks away munching on the skewer. His eyes light up as he chews, realizing that it tastes incredible. While he's eating, the sound of metal striking metal catches his ear. He looks toward a building and notes that this neighborhood must be where the blacksmiths live. Inside the workshop, 2 smiths are hard at work, hammering away at red-hot metal on an anvil in perfect rhythm. Haru stares intently at the workshop, completely captivated by the sight, thinking about how cool it looks. Suddenly, a gloved hand lands on his shoulder. Haru turns around, looking a bit startled, and immediately apologizes, asking if he was standing in the way. It turns out to be a young girl wearing a large ribbon in her hair. She smiles at him and asks if he has an interest in blacksmithing. Haru admits that yeah, he kind of does, but before he can finish his thought, the situation shifts. The girl suddenly grabs his hand and starts running, telling him to come this way. Haru is totally caught off guard and yelps as he gets dragged along. She pulls him right through the entrance of the building. Haru manages to politely call out that he's intruding as they rush inside. Inside, a massive blacksmith is bringing a hammer down on red-hot metal. Haru watches the sparks fly and thinks the sheer force of it is amazing. The girl calls out to the man, addressing him as Dad, and asks if they can stay and watch him work. The blacksmith wipes the sweat off his face and spots Haru, asking if he's a friend. He tells them it's fine, but warns them to stay back and watch from a safe distance. The girl gives a cheerful salute and thanks him enthusiastically. Haru looks around the busy room, taking it all in. He thinks the place looks exactly like a dwarf's workshop with all the activity going on. Sparks fly as a hammer strikes hot metal. The girl comments on how beautiful it looks, which catches Haru off guard for a second. She watches the work intently and admits that she wants to be able to do blacksmithing just like that. Haru smiles at her and says he's sure she can do it. He suggests she should just go ahead and ask her father. The girl hesitates, worrying that she might get scolded for asking. Haru tells her to go for it anyway, so what if she gets scolded? He reminds her that this is something she really wants to do. She realizes he's right and agrees with him, finding her resolve. The blacksmith dad notices them getting close and yells at them to stay back because it's dangerous, but the girl steps forward anyway. She calls out to her dad and tells him straight up that she wants to do blacksmithing too. Her father looks completely confused and asks her what she just said. She doubles down and tells him she wants to try hitting the iron herself. The girl bows her head deeply and shouts, begging her father to please let her try. Her dad sits at the anvil in silence, just staring blankly while she stays in her bowing position waiting for an answer. He lets out a huge sigh and finally caves, telling her she can have a turn once he finishes his current task. The girl looks up at him, eyes wide with surprise and happiness. Work starts immediately. The dad stands over her with his arms crossed, barking orders to drop her hips and hit the metal with more power before it cools down. The girl struggles under the pressure but yells back that she understands. It's not easy going and the metal looks a bit rough. Her dad yells at her to heat it up again, reminding her strictly that she's the one who asked for this, so she better not think about giving up now. She wipes the sweat from her face and shouts back a firm yes, looking totally determined to get this right. Haru watches the whole scene from the side, smiling to himself. He thinks about how nice it is to see ambitious kids chasing their dreams and enjoying their youth. The work continues through a montage of heavy effort. She hammers the hot iron, quenches it in water with a hiss of steam, and keeps pushing through the exhaustion. Finally, the blade is complete. The girl cheers that it's actually done, and Haru congratulates her on the success. Her dad places a big hand on her head and smiles. He admits that for a first attempt, she did a great job and tells her to make sure she remembers exactly how this felt. She beams at him and agrees. The blacksmith girl lifts the finished blade up to the light, admiring her own handiwork. She whispers that it looks beautiful. Turning his attention away from the anvil, the blacksmith dad looks over at Haru. He scratches his head and apologizes, realizing he made the kid wait around for an entire day while they were working. Haru bows politely and says it's fine, apologizing for barging in on them so suddenly in the first place. The dad waves it off, telling him not to worry about it. To show his appreciation, the dad tells Haru to go ahead and pick out any weapon he likes as a thank you gift. Haru is surprised and asks if he's sure, pointing out that these are products meant for sale. The dad just laughs loudly, crossing his arms. He insists it's totally fine and tells Haru to take something without holding back. Seeing that the offer is genuine, Haru smiles and says he'll take him up on his kindness. Haru walks over to a display shelf and points at some small throwing daggers. He asks the blacksmith if he can just have a few of those. The dad looks confused by the modest choice. He holds up a proper, shiny longsword and asks if Haru is really okay with just those daggers, mentioning that there are way more impressive swords he could take instead. Haru shakes his head and insists that the daggers are actually what he wants. He holds one of the small blades, looking satisfied. Haru knows that while a sword would be cool, his current child body doesn't have the muscle strength to wield one yet, so the lighter weapons are the only practical choice. The blacksmith dad sees Haru pointing at the small daggers and immediately jumps on board. He tells Haru that if those are what he wants, he actually has a stock of about 20 of them in the back, and he'll just give him the whole lot. Haru is completely shocked by the sheer number, asking if he's serious about giving him that many. Later, as things are winding down, the blacksmith girl catches up with Haru outside. She calls out to him, thanking him for everything that happened today. She tells him that thanks to his help, she was finally able to take a real step forward as a smith. Haru tries to stay humble about it, telling her he didn't actually do anything and that she's the one who put in all the hard work. But she's not letting him brush it off that easily. She holds out a sheathed dagger, the one she was working on earlier, and insists that she wants to show her gratitude. Haru looks at the weapon in her hands. He smiles gently and comments on how beautifully it turned out. Blushing a little, she holds the dagger out to him with both hands. She formally asks him to please accept it as a gift. Haru hesitates, looking surprised. He asks if she's really okay with giving this to him, pointing out that it's the very first piece she's ever successfully made. Usually, a creator would want to keep their first work as a memento. Her hands tremble slightly as she clutches the scabbard. She explains that this blade literally wouldn't exist if Haru hadn't been there today. Because he was the catalyst for its creation, she feels it belongs to him. Hearing her reasoning, Haru's expression softens. He smiles warmly and tells her that if that's how she feels, he'll gladly accept it. The girl lets out a relieved breath and smiles brightly, thanking him for accepting her gift. Haru realizes he forgot something important. He mentions that, come to think of it, he never asked her name. He introduces himself properly as Eberhard and says it's nice to meet her. The girl places a hand on her chest and introduces herself. She says she is Mei Alendil. Haru tests out the name Mei-chan, then asks if it's alright if he just calls her Mei. Mei completely loses it. She grabs her face in shock, freaking out internally that she's already been given a nickname. Haru sees her freeze up and gets concerned, calling her name again, but he's not sure what's going on with her sudden reaction. She manages to pull herself together, blushing hard. She tells him that calling her Mei is fine. Then she stammers, trying to figure out what to call him in return since he introduced himself as Eberhard. Haru smiles brightly and saves her the trouble, telling her that Haru is fine. Mei fidgets with her fingers shyly. She stutters a bit before settling on calling him Haru Dono. That shy honorific hits Haru like a truck. He stands there with an arrow through his metaphorical heart, thinking about how incredibly cute she is. With big, hopeful eyes, Mei looks up at him and asks if he'll come back to visit again tomorrow. Haru keeps the good vibes going and invites her over. He tells her that of course she should come to his house to play, suggesting they can run around in the garden together. That word garden instantly triggers Mei. Her eyes light up with sparkles and she assumes that having a garden must mean he's super rich. Haru laughs it off awkwardly, trying to downplay it. With plans made, they part ways for the day. Haru waves as he heads home, and Mei waves back enthusiastically with both hands in the middle of the street. Later on, the scene shifts drastically. Haru is in the middle of intense training, yelling out a battle cry as he unleashes a flurry of hand strikes. He's sparring against a male instructor who is easily blocking and dodging Haru's attacks with a wooden sword. Haru keeps pressing the attack, but he's not connecting. Haru grimaces, struggling to keep up. The instructor calmly lectures him, telling him to control the useless shouting because it just wastes stamina. Haru backs off, sweating and frustrated. He grunts, thinking to himself that he can't visualize winning against this guy at all. The gap in skill is just too big. While he fights, Haru thinks about his family's secret fighting style, the Northern General War God style. It has two main types, front and back. The front style focuses on using basic support magic as the foundation for combat. He focuses on a specific technique. The concept is to use body strengthening combined with telekinesis to accelerate the arm instantly. It creates a no-motion strike called matataki or blink. Haru readies himself, confident in this one move. He thinks to himself that this is the technique he's best at. With a sharp exhale, he steps into strike. The instructor catches Haru's punch effortlessly with one hand. He tells Haru that while he's improved, the blink technique is meant to be used as a set with feints. He warns that if Haru just spams it recklessly like that, it'll get countered immediately. And right on cue, the instructor launches a counter of his own, thrusting his palm forward with a burst of magical energy. Haru gets blasted backward by a hexagonal barrier spell, yelling out as the force sends him flying. He lands on the ground in the garden, wincing and rubbing his head. He mutters that it actually hurts. The instructor looks down at him with a smirk, noting that Haru got off with just a scratch, which isn't bad. Haru looks a bit shocked, but the instructor cheerfully adds a terrifying detail. If the timing had been off by even a little bit, Haru would have been seriously injured. Haru just freezes up hearing that. Getting back to business, the instructor critiques Haru's form. He says that his body strengthening is still lacking, and his activation of telekinesis is too slow. He drives the point home, telling Haru that with that kind of speed, he'd eat a counterattack even from someone seeing the move for the first time. Haru pouts, looking completely dejected. He complains that the guy shouldn't be asking for that level of skill from a 10-year-old. The instructor crosses his arms and sighs. He tells Haru that he says these things precisely because he doesn't think of him as a 10-year-old at all. The instructor, who we find out is actually Haru's father, tries to cheer him up. He rests his hand on Haru's head and admits that while there's a skill gap between them right now, Haru is definitely stronger than he was at the same age. He keeps patting Haru's head and smiles, reassuring him that since he's his father, he wouldn't make a mistake about this. He calls Haru a genius of hard work. Haru blushes a little, looking moved by the praise, and quietly agrees. This hits Haru pretty deep. He thinks back to his previous life as a salaryman, remembering how his parents back then never really expected anything from him. Receiving this kind of validation now makes him feel all warm and ticklish inside. With the heartfelt moment over, his dad waves and walks toward the mansion. He tells Haru it's time to head back, wash off all the sweat, and get some lunch, urging him to hurry up. Haru gives a cheerful answer as they head inside the estate. Later, the scene shifts to the town of Hateberg. Haru is walking through the streets accompanied by two guards. The narration notes that since this town is right on the frontier border, there are a ton of monsters in the area. Because of that constant threat, the adventurers in this town aren't amateurs. They all carry themselves with the pride of combat professionals. Haru stares intently at the scene around him, muttering the word adventurers to himself with a look of interest. While Haru walks down the street, Mei spots him from her house. She leans out the window, waving her hand frantically, and calls out to him. Haru looks up, spotting the blacksmith girl. He smiles and gives her a friendly wave back. Mei doesn't waste any time. She runs right out the front door to meet him, offering a polite greeting as she approaches. Haru gets straight to business. He tells her that he wants her to be his guide today and show him around the town. Mei stops, looking totally confused. She points out that Haru actually lives in this town, so asking for a guide seems pretty weird to her. Haru realizes how that sounded and scratches his cheek awkwardly. He laughs it off and clarifies that he's looking for the cool spots or recommended places he might have missed. That changes her attitude instantly. Mei pumps her fist with excitement and declares that she absolutely knows some good spots. She grabs Haru by the hand and starts dragging him down the street, telling him the tour starts right now. Mei leads him to the center of town. The area opens up into a massive, bustling plaza with a fountain in the middle, crowded with carriages and people going about their day. The crowd here is diverse, just as Haru expected from a frontier town. Around the fountain, there's a child with horns playing in the water, an armored adventurer resting on a bench, and even a guy with rabbit ears sitting nearby. Haru looks around the area and honestly admits that it's beautiful. Seeing his reaction, Mei puffs out her chest, looking incredibly smug and proud of herself for showing him such a good spot. She keeps the tour moving, pointing a finger toward a building with a sign that reads Z-Wing and suggests they check it out. Inside the shop, Mei browses the shelves until something catches her eye, a glowing crystal ornament shaped like a snowflake sitting in a basket. She gazes at it and murmurs that it's really cute. Haru notices her interest and leans in, asking which item specifically caught her attention. But the mood changes the second she flips the price tag over. Mei starts sweating bullets when she sees the cost, stammering that it's too expensive and deciding she just has to suck it up and pass on it. They leave the store, and Mei notices Haru is carrying a purchase. She asks him what he bought, and he casually lifts up a new satchel, showing her his haul. Mei looks at the bag he chose and cheerfully tells him that it really suits him. Haru smiles and thanks her for the compliment. But then he catches her off guard. He pulls out a separate, flatly wrapped package and hands it toward her, telling her that this one is actually for her. Mei just stares at him, completely confused. She opens the gift and freezes. Resting in her gloves is the crystal snowflake she had to walk away from. She looks up, blushing, realizing it's the exact one from earlier. Haru scratches his cheek a bit shyly and gives her a simple reason. He bought it for her just because she said it was cute. Haru leans over the counter and whispers to the old shopkeeper, politely asking him to handle the transaction discreetly so he can finalize the gift. Mei looks at him with wide eyes, asking if it's really okay for her to accept something like this just because she showed him around town. Haru smiles gently and assures her that it's simply a thank you gift for being his guide. Her hesitation vanishes instantly. Mei launches herself at him, shouting a loud thank you as she wraps him in a massive, enthusiastic hug. Haru gets completely overwhelmed by the contact, stammering for her to wait a second as she clings to him with a flushed face. Later, the mood shifts completely. Haru stands ready in his travel gear and cloak, telling himself it's time to move. He steels his nerves, acknowledging that he's about to step into his first battle where his life is genuinely on the line. He heads out toward the Kamura's Plain, a vast stretch of land that spreads across the center of the Margrave territory. It's not a place for a casual stroll. It's known as one of the most dangerous areas in the entire empire, famous for its freezing temperatures and high density of monsters. Haru reflects on his own weaknesses as he goes. He knows that what he needs right now isn't just power, but the mental fortitude to resist pressure when things go wrong. He needs to prove he has the adaptability to handle critical situations the moment they arise. The stakes are personal for him. He decides that if he can't make the hard decisions when it really matters, then he's disqualified from ever being the head of the Fahrenheit family. Haru stops in his tracks near some rocky terrain. He spots something wandering in the distance and lets out a curious hum. It's a massive, drooling beast with a singular horn. The creature snorts heavily, looking aggressive. Haru recognizes it immediately, identifying the creature as a green boar. Haru recalls the data on the monster. It's a green boar, a violent creature that usually requires a D-rank adventurer to take down. Despite the rank, Haru stays calm. He analyzes the situation, noting that its raw attack power isn't actually that high. He figures as long as he's careful about its charging speed, taking it down shouldn't be too hard. He reaches into his hip pouch and pulls out 3 throwing knives. As he grips them between his knuckles, he channels magic into the blades, causing them to hum with power. The boar charges straight at him. Haru doesn't flinch. He flings the magic-infused knives directly at the onrushing beast. As the knives connect, Haru makes a dry observation about the creature's noise, noting that its cry literally sounds like the word boar. He holds out his hand to trigger the next phase of his attack. He activates the spell imbued in the knives, shouting binding. Instantly, dark ribbons of magic erupt and wrap tightly around the beast, suspending it in midair and completely immobilizing it. The fight is effectively over. The green boar lies on the ground, twitching helplessly and letting out a weak, fading groan as Haru looks down at his work. Haru decides to wrap things up. With a casual grunt of effort, he swings his arm and unleashes a massive crescent blade of wind magic to deliver the finishing blow. Haru shouts magic blade, and the wind attack connects perfectly, slamming into the boar's neck with a sharp impact. With the deed done, Haru wipes some sweat from his forehead and gives a relieved smile. He lets out a breath and declares that his first battle is officially over. He looks up at the sky, feeling pretty good about himself. He admits to himself that the whole thing was actually surprisingly easy. Haru starts breaking down the mechanics of what he just did. He explains that the method he used involved imbuing his magic directly into a physical object, in this case, his throwing knife. By solidifying that magic into wire shapes, he was able to create physical restraints to bind his opponent instantly upon impact. He gets specific about the combo, noting that he took the non-attribute magic binding and attached it to the knife using another non-attribute spell called enchant. Haru inspects the blade in his hand. He acknowledges that it's not exactly an insanely powerful technique in terms of raw damage, but he figures it's definitely usable enough for a fight like this. But then reality sets in. Haru looks up from his weapon, his expression shifting as he realizes the next problem. He stands next to the massive dead green boar, which is easily twice his size. He wonders how he's supposed to carry this thing home and thinks that having a cart right now would have been a really good idea. Since he doesn't have a cart, he does it the hard way. Haru ties a rope around the beast and starts physically dragging the massive carcass down the road, looking determined to get his loot home. Mei spots Haru waiting for her and waves her hand enthusiastically, calling out to him with a big smile. They meet up in front of the town fountain. Haru says hello, and Mei politely thanks him for inviting her out today. Haru notices she's carrying a paper bag and asks her what she's holding. Mei happily presents the package, announcing that it's sweets from the dwarf country. She hands it over with a slightly shy smile, explaining that she brought it since she's going to be visiting his place. Haru accepts the gift and thanks her. He notices the package has a really nice scent coming from it. With the pleasantries done, Haru suggests they get moving immediately and they start walking. The two of them stroll through the town streets together, making their way toward Haru's home. As the walk continues, Mei starts looking a bit nervous and sweating. She asks if it's still far, and Haru cheerfully replies that there's only a little bit left to go. They walk alongside a massive brick wall with a huge mansion looming in the background. Mei suddenly realizes where they are and nervously grabs onto Haru's hand, questioning him with a shaky voice. Haru stands calmly in front of a massive iron gate, but Mei is completely frozen. She stares at the entrance, shaking like a leaf, and stammers out a confused question about whether this is actually the house. Haru gestures grandly toward the sprawling estate and the guards behind him, casually welcoming her to his home. Mei's brain completely shuts down. She just stares blankly, letting out a meaningless sound of confusion. Suddenly, reality hits her and she loses it. She starts screaming, asking if this place is a castle and demanding to know if Haru is actually a prince. Haru stays calm while she flails around him. He drops his alias and reveals his real name is Eberhard Karl-Heinz von Fahrenheit, though he clarifies that he's definitely not a prince. He places a hand on his chest and smiles. explaining that he's the eldest son of the Frontier Count family and takes a moment to formally introduce himself to her again. May stops screaming and starts trembling intensely, muttering a strained response under her breath. Haru tilts his head, confused by why she suddenly went quiet. Without warning, May drops to the pavement and slams her head down in a perfect, terrified prostration, stammering out a formal acknowledgement. Haru completely panics at her sudden subservience and yells at her to wait a minute, totally freaked out by her reaction. Haru is sweating bullets while May stays glued to the pavement in her terrified prostration, just staring intensely at nothing. Haru starts waving his hands around in a panic, desperately trying to get her to stop acting like a servant and just get up. He manages to calm things down a bit and gives her an awkward smile. He tells her that he'd really appreciate it if she could just treat him normally, exactly the way she has been doing up until now. May looks pretty overwhelmed by that request, nervously asking if he really means normally. Haru steps in and places a reassuring hand on her shoulder to help her relax. He flashes her a genuine, bright grin and reminds her of the obvious. They're friends, aren't they? That does the trick. May's face lights up and she pumps her fist with renewed determination, loudly agreeing that they are indeed friends. Seeing her cheer up, Haru smiles warmly and casually drops a smooth line, telling her that she definitely looks much cuter when she's smiling. The compliment hits her like a truck. May completely loses her composure, letting out a shocked squeak while her face turns bright red. She awkwardly looks away, blushing hard and mumbling a weak denial, totally unable to handle his accidental charm. Haru, completely oblivious to the mood he just set, suddenly switches gears. He claps his hand on a box he's holding and says, "Oh yeah, there's actually a specific reason he called her out here today." May tilts her head, asking what the reason is. Getting down to business, Haru looks at her directly and explains that he wants her to craft a certain thing for him starting now. May repeats the words back, wondering what exactly he has in mind. Haru takes the lid, telling May to follow him as they head toward the estate buildings. Once they arrive at the workshop area, Haru breaks down the situation and explains exactly what he needs her to do. May listens intently, eyes sparkling with excitement as she takes it all in. Haru pauses for a second though. He notes that before they can actually start crafting anything, the first hurdle is securing the raw materials. May doesn't hesitate for a beat. She pounds her chest confidently and tells him to leave that part entirely to her. She is a dwarf after all. Haru blinks, looking a bit surprised as he realizes he completely forgot about the specific capabilities of her race. See, dwarves, the race hailing from the Nord Peninsula, aren't just known for being short and having dense muscles. They have a special characteristic: they are deeply loved by gnomes. These gnomes are the spirits that dwell within the earth and govern all earth attribute magic. Because of this high affinity with the spirits, the entire dwarven race possesses an incredibly high aptitude for earth magic as a standard trait. Haru understands the theory, but he still looks skeptical, asking how exactly that translates to getting materials right now. May shows him exactly how it works. She simply reaches out her hands to the open air and loudly asks Mr. Gnome to please give her some iron. Haru starts to scoff, thinking there's no way a casual spell like that would actually work. But immediately the ground in front of them bursts open with a loud thud. Haru completely loses it and screams at the top of his lungs. While he's freaking out, May just stands there with a pleasant smile as black particles begin rising from the earth. The particles swirl together in the air, clumping into a dense mass. Haru stares at it and realizes exactly what she just pulled out of the ground: it's iron sand. Haru is trembling with shock and demands to know what she just did. May looks back at him, genuinely confused by his dramatic reaction. She tilts her head innocently and tells him that she's pretty sure every dwarf can do something like this. Haru stands there sweating, his mind racing. He realizes that what he just witnessed wasn't a normal trick. It was almost certainly spirit magic. As May calmly manipulates the floating particles with her eyes closed, Haru tries to wrap his head around the implications. He realizes she didn't learn this from anyone. Based purely on instinct and intuition she was born with, she just casually cast earth attribute spirit magic. Haru is sweating bullets, completely overwhelmed. The situation is so insane that his brain short-circuits, and he loses all his vocabulary, leaving him only able to think about how absolutely crazy this girl's potential is. Meanwhile, May is having a great time. She cheerfully asks Mr. Gnome to please shape the iron into a round ball for her. A massive, perfect ring of black iron sand forms in the air above them, hovering ominously as May presents it with a smile. Haru stares at it, but the light has completely left his eyes. He mentally tells himself that he's done, he's just not going to be surprised anymore. With a totally dead expression, Haru starts clapping his hands mechanically. He tells May that this is what true magic looks like, basically just going through the motions to compliment her. Moving on, they're suddenly racing through town. May is out in front pulling a wooden cart, screaming in pure excitement as she runs. Haru is in the back pushing, yelling out with effort as they pick up momentum. May shouts about how fast they're going, having the time of her life. Meanwhile, Haru looks confused. He realizes the cart feels incredibly light, way lighter than it should be. Haru reminds her that he did say he wanted a cart specifically for adventuring, trying to explain his original request while May listens with starry eyes. His mind wanders to how absurd this is. He thinks about how she managed to build this thing despite only starting her blacksmith training a few days ago. Even if she is a dwarf, that speed is unnatural. He starts questioning if this level of skill is just a standard racial trait for dwarves or if it's actually May's own terrifying personal talent. But the celebration is short-lived. May suddenly turns green, covers her mouth, and makes a gross noise like she's about to hurl. After that crazy cart run, both of them are completely wiped out. May collapses on the side and moans about how exhausted she is, and Haru is lying flat on his back, agreeing that he's totally done. Haru catches his breath and turns to her, saying he actually has a proposal. May just looks over, still confused and panting. He points toward a section of the estate and suggests building a brand new workshop right there, exclusively for her to use. May's eyes go wide and she freaks out, asking if he really means a workshop dedicated just to her. Haru lays out the plan with a confident look. He tells her that he'll go out and hunt monsters using the gear she makes. And while he's doing that, she can stay in the workshop and focus entirely on researching and creating new tools. He asks if that setup doesn't sound like fun. May is instantly sold. She starts cheering, telling Haru Dono that he's absolutely amazing and a total genius. Haru smiles awkwardly at her praise, but internally he's thinking that if anyone is the genius here, it's definitely her. May is beaming with pure joy, clenching her fists and telling him she can't wait to get started. Seeing her smile like that, Haru thinks to himself that while the future is going to be fun, it's also honestly a little terrifying considering what she's capable of. Haru and May are on the move. Haru snacks on some food, noting how tasty it is while May hums a happy tune beside him. In the next moment, Haru is doing the heavy lifting, pulling the cart out of the gate while they head toward their destination. After getting May settled in, Haru heads out. May leans way out of the window of her new workshop, waving her arms frantically to see him off. Haru gives her a casual wave back before leaving her to her crafting. Haru heads straight to the Adventurers Guild warehouse to drop off his loot. He walks up to the counter and starts dumping his haul while other adventurers hang around in the background. And it's not just a small bag. Haru unloads a massive mountain of goblin ears right onto the counter. The pile is huge. Haru flashes a bright, innocent smile at the staff member and cheerfully announces that these are goblin ears, asking to exchange them for cash. The guild staff guy just stares at him, sweat pouring down his face. He stammers out a response, asking if Haru is seriously kidding right now. The commotion draws attention. A scarred adventurer nudges his party member, telling her to look at the kid and saying that what they're seeing shouldn't be possible. A whole group of adventurers stands there completely stunned. One of them shouts out in disbelief, asking how he could possibly get that number of goblins. Haru starts sweating bullets as he realizes he's become the center of attention. The whole room is staring at him and his mountain of ears, making things incredibly awkward. Later on, the scene shifts to the Fahrenheit estate. Haru is sitting at a dinner table dressed in formal clothes, and he speaks up, addressing his father. Back at the dinner table, the conversation turns to Haru's recent activities. His dad notices something is up, so Haru admits that he's sort of started acting as an adventurer. His dad just closes his eyes and lets out a low, knowing sound, breaking into a grin. He looks at his son and remarks that Haru has finally taken an interest in their line of work. Haru's mom chimes in cheerfully, reminiscing about the old days. She tells Haru that she and his father used to form a party and adventure all across the country together. His dad says he obviously doesn't mind Haru doing it, but he tells him to watch his back. Haru looks a little confused by the sudden warning. His father gets serious, explaining that kids who join the guild often become targets for hazing and bullying. He notes that it's a rough path everyone has to go through eventually. Curious about their past, Haru asks how the two of them handled that kind of trouble back in the day. Haru's mom flashes a sharp, intense look and declares that the answer is obvious. Her voice echoes the answer, retaliation. But the reality for Haru is different. The scene cuts back to the guild, where the other adventurers are staring at him in pure horror rather than trying to bully him. Haru hides his face, thinking he didn't even need to use his mom's violent methods since he accidentally freaked everyone out with his goblin ear mountain instead. Moving on from the awkwardness, Haru counts the day as a win. Thanks to May's cart, his first official day as an adventurer ended with a massive haul. Moving on to Haru's progress, he's officially moving up in the world. His adventure rank badge is sparkling, signaling that he's been promoted from F rank to E rank. Haru stands in front of the guild's request board, scanning his options. He's thinking about taking a job from the D rank section to challenge himself with something a little higher level, but then he spots something specific. He focuses on a request paper titled Regular Investigation of Lantern Ruins. Reading the description, he notices it mentions that the location involves ruins from the ancient magic civilization era. A smile crosses Haru's face. That definitely gets his attention, and he mutters to himself that he sees what this is about. Haru takes off, running through the woods toward the location. As he heads out, the story shifts to the lore of this world, specifically regarding the ancient magic civilization. This is a legend that has been passed down through history in this world. The story goes that about 1,500 years ago, a legendary hero defeated the ancient demon king. The flashback shows the victor holding up the severed head of the beast while people cheer. Once humanity was liberated from that threat, they established their very first nation, the Highland Empire. That same hero became the first emperor, and his bloodline has been passed down all the way to the current emperor sitting on the throne today. But the history goes back even further. The records state that once upon a time on this continent. Continuing with the lore, the narration reveals that long ago, there was actually an advanced magic civilization that was even more developed than the current modern era. But things went south fast. The story explains that humanity ended up being ruled by demons for several hundred years, and during that dark period, the entire civilization fell into ruin and was abandoned. Back in the present, Haru reflects on this history. He notes that unfortunately, almost none of that ancient technology survived to be passed down to their current time. Despite the tragic history, Haru is pretty hyped. He runs through the forest, thinking about how he's approaching ruins from over 2,000 years ago, and admits he's getting a little excited about the adventure. Suddenly, he spots a structure emerging from the trees and wonders if that's his destination. Haru arrives at the entrance of the Lantern Ruins. It's an old stone structure with large pillars looking exactly like the ancient relic it is. The place isn't exactly in pristine condition, though. Haru comments that it's filthy and complains that if this is supposed to be an important heritage site, they should protect it better. As he gripes, he has to wave his hand just to clear the massive spiderwebs out of his face. He heads inside and starts his investigation. He pulls out the request paperwork and begins comparing the information he has with the inscriptions on the stone monuments lining the walls. While scanning the area, Haru suddenly stops. Something catches his eye. He looks down at his feet. He notices that the material of the floor is different in just one specific spot compared to the rest. He steps down onto the suspicious tile with a solid click. Haru decides to check out what's beneath that suspicious floor tile. He crouches down, places his hand on the ground, and activates a spell he calls Active Sonar. Basically, this is a detection-type magic that doesn't belong to any specific element. It works by sending out magic waves at a specific frequency to map out the surroundings, kind of like a bat. Whatever the sonar picks up, it hits Haru hard. His eyes snap open and he breaks into a sweat, completely shocked by what he's sensing underground. Moving on, the scene shifts to the Adventurers Guild. A staff member is talking to Haru, asking him if he really needs to discuss something in private. The staff member is named Sally. Haru starts unpacking a cloth bag on the counter, explaining to her that he found something buried underground over at the Lantern Ruins. He reveals a cluster of glowing crystals. Sally takes one look at the shining rocks and loses her composure, asking if that's actually mithril. And she's right, it's mithril, a super precious metal famous for giving off a mysterious glow. But Haru isn't done. He tells her that aside from the mithril, he also found some rainbow-colored ores down there. He recalls how bright and sparkly they were in the ruins, then asks Sally if she has any clue what those might be. Hearing this, Sally stops smiling and gets serious. She thinks for a second and tells Haru that for that specific topic, he's going to need to talk to the guild master. Sally takes the lid, telling Haru she'll show him the way. Haru thanks her and follows her through the heavy double doors. They enter a spacious office where someone is waiting for them behind a large desk. This is evidently where the top brass of the guild operates. Things get heated immediately. Sally is completely losing her mind, shouting about whether they're seriously talking about orichalcum, that legendary metal. Haru just stands there looking a bit confused by her intense reaction. The woman behind the desk speaks up calmly. She confirms that there's absolutely no mistake about it. This is the guild master. She has a sharp, intense look and distinct features that set her apart from a normal human. She explains her reasoning while looking at the samples. According to her, a metal that shines in rainbow colors like that can't be anything other than orichalcum. Turning to Haru, the guild master offers him some praise, telling him he did an impressive job finding something like this. Haru doesn't try to be humble at all, he's beaming with a smug look on his face. Following that meeting, a major operation kicks off. Teams are sent into the ancient ruins to recover the massive stockpile of mithril resources Haru located. The whole commotion regarding the buried resources eventually gets settled with a specific deal. Haru secures 50% ownership rights of everything found. Thanks to that ownership deal, Haru instantly acquires a massive amount of funding, setting himself up with serious wealth. Haru and Mei are busy working on a construction project, building a workshop specifically for her use. Mei gets to work using her magic. She clasps her hands together and politely asks the earth spirits to do their best because she wants to create a stone wall. Haru watches from the side, sweating a little as he repeats her words. He finds it amusing that she's actually cheering the spirits on while casting. Her polite request works though. The ground rumbles and a stone wall starts rising up rapidly, but suddenly the wall just stops moving. Haru notices the abrupt halt and calls out to check on her. Mei is completely out of it, swaying with swirly eyes as she mutters that she's already at her limit. Haru freaks out and rushes over to catch her, asking if she's all right. Haru immediately starts transferring magic to her to keep her going. He notes that while Mei is talented with spirit magic, her actual mana capacity is pretty low, so she runs dry quickly. As he recharges her, Haru starts thinking about the mechanics of it. He imagines how convenient it would be if there were simply magic outlets she could plug into whenever she needed a boost. That thought stops him in his tracks. A light bulb goes off in his head as he considers the possibilities. He comes up with a concept for a new invention, a magic battery. He figures if he creates a battery-like device, anyone could easily recover a full day's worth of magic with rapid charging capabilities. Haru hits a wall immediately though. He groans, thinking that coming up with the idea is the easy part, but actually figuring out how to build the thing is a whole different story. He holds his chin, trying to work through the logic. He's stuck wondering how to mechanically convert the magic wavelengths to make this battery concept work. Suddenly, Mei speaks up from the side, breaking his concentration. She starts summarizing his problem. She points a finger up, smiling, and asks if he basically wants to adjust the magic capacity to match the wavelength of the magic stones. Haru blinks, caught off guard, and just agrees with her. Mei has an instant solution. She cheerfully tells him that if that's the case, they should just use mithril. Haru looks at her, confused, asking what she means by mithril. She breaks down the science for him. She explains that mithril is a metal that conducts magic extremely well. She figures if they mix iron and mithril together, they can control the flow of magic. She concludes that by creating that specific mixture, they can build a circuit that perfectly matches the wavelength the magic stone needs. Haru has a total aha moment. He pumps his fist, realizing that's exactly the missing piece he needed. They don't waste a second. Haru and Mei immediately combine their magic, processing the materials right there to test the theory. As they work, Haru glances over at her. He's honestly shocked that Mei was able to come up with such a complex mechanism so easily. Watching Mei work her magic with the mithril, Haru has to admit to himself that he still has a lot to learn. He realizes he might have completely underestimated Mei's true value as an artisan. Meanwhile, Mei is totally pumped, cheering that the experiment is going to work perfectly. We jump ahead a bit. Several days have passed since the mithril discovery, and the scene shifts back to the main Fahrenheit estate. Haru is wandering down one of the mansion's hallways, clutching his stomach. He's muttering to himself that he really wants to find something to snack on. A girl with braided hair spots him in the hall and asks what's wrong with him. This is Noelle Derge von Flensburg Fahrenheit. Turns out she's Haru's older sister, 2 years his senior. Haru admits he's just got an empty stomach. Noelle lights up, saying that's a total coincidence, and suggests they go hit up the head chef to beg for some food together. Just as they're planning their snack raid, a voice calls out from behind them, noting that there's a small gentleman and lady present. They turn to see their father standing next to a heavyset man with a greasy smirk on his face. The Margrave stoically introduces the kids as his daughter and son. The visitor lays it on thick, commenting that they look like intelligent young people, and he can clearly tell they've inherited the Margrave's noble blood. Haru's dad isn't buying the smooth talk, though. He tells the guy to save the flattery because he's already heard the proposal. He makes it clear that as long as the man follows the laws of his territory, he won't step in or interfere with whatever business the guy is planning. With the tense conversation wrapping up, the visiting noble quickly agrees to the conditions Haru's dad laid out, confirming he understands everything perfectly. Haru's dad turns to him, changing the subject. He mentions that speaking of other matters, a letter actually arrived addressed to Haru. Haru looks down at the wax-sealed envelope in his hand, a bit confused about who would be writing to him. Noelle immediately leans in with a grin, nagging him to let her see it. Haru ignores her for a second, realizing the letter is from Lily and wondering what she wants. He opens it up to read Lily's message. She writes that she's been pretty bored lately, so she decided she's coming over to the Fahrenheit estate to hang out. She continues, noting that her scheduled arrival time should be exactly 3 days before the Spirit Festival. Just for context, the Spirit Festival is a major event in this world. It's a celebration dedicated to thanking nature for a rich harvest and praying for the continued prosperity of the nation. Haru freezes as the math hits him. He realizes 3 days before the festival is literally today. His dad just laughs at the reaction and Noelle looks surprised, but Haru is completely losing his mind. He doesn't waste a second. He takes off sprinting down the hallway, yelling that he has to hurry up and get everything ready for her arrival. Haru catches his breath, a smile coming to his face as he thinks about how it's actually been a really long time since he last saw Lily. Just then, Alyssa steps into the room and announces that Lily has officially arrived. Haru acknowledges the news, internally relieved that he barely managed to get everything ready in time. He rushes out to the entrance to greet the carriage. He welcomes Lily back, but then does a double take when he spots May standing there too, asking why she's here as well. The greeting doesn't go as planned. Lily just stares at him with a super grumpy look on her face, and May is giving him the exact same silent, angry glare. Haru freezes up, realizing the vibe is completely wrong and something is definitely off here. Suddenly, Lily snaps, shouting at the top of her lungs that Haru is a total idiot. May piles on immediately after, yelling that Haru has absolutely no integrity whatsoever. The situation escalates fast. Lily points an accusatory finger right at May and demands that Haru explain exactly who this woman is. May isn't backing down either. She gets right in Haru's face, shaking her fists and demanding to know if everything between them was just some kind of game to him. Haru is sweating bullets, completely panicked. He begs them to wait a second and explain what this is all about, but they just shout at him to stop playing dumb. The interrogation kicks off immediately. Lily screams that there's no point in him trying to hide anything, while May shouts from the other side, demanding to know exactly what this situation means. Haru is stuck in the middle, terrified and sweating while they both yell at him. A few minutes pass as Haru frantically explains the misunderstanding. After hearing him out, Lily's expression softens a bit. She asks him if what he just said is actually the truth. She stares at him intensely, verifying that he really wasn't cheating on her. Haru frantically waves his hands, desperate to prove his innocence. Haru turns to May and assures her he wouldn't do something like that. May looks away with a pout, huffing that she guesses it's fine if that's the case. But then May's mood drops. She looks down sadly, admitting that it can't be helped. He is a noble after all, so it's only natural that he would have a fiancée. With her head hanging low, May excuses herself for the day. Haru and Lily watch in silence as she trudges away, looking pretty heartbroken. With the misunderstanding cleared up and May gone, Haru and Lily spend some time together. They take a walk through the estate's beautiful garden, looking at the flowers. They spend the rest of the day exploring the area, checking out the back mountain and going around the town together, just enjoying the date. By the end of it, they are back inside. Lily stretches her arms out, letting out a big sigh. She announces that she's totally exhausted and wants to hop in the bath. Lily turns back with a playful smile and asks if he's coming. Then she drops a massive bomb, casually asking if he wants to take a bath together with her. Haru's brain is clearly on autopilot from the long day. He just smiles peacefully and agrees without thinking, saying, "Sure, I guess." A split second later, the words actually register. Haru screams in pure panic, realizing what he just agreed to. Lily stares at him with a deadpan look, asking what his problem is and if he dislikes the idea. Haru starts waving his hands frantically, blushing hard. He yells that it's definitely not that he dislikes it, stammering over his own words to explain himself. Lily decides that's all the confirmation she needs. She grabs him by the wrist and starts dragging him along, telling him that if he's fine with it, they should just go. In the next scene, they are already in the changing room. Lily starts undressing without a care in the world, the sound of clothes rustling filling the air. Haru is stuck in the corner, letting out a pained groan as he tries to avert his gaze. He slams his hand over his face, chanting "wait, wait, wait" to himself, trying desperately to keep his composure. Haru starts having a fierce internal debate. On one hand, he reasons that he's physically 10 years old and she is his fiancée, so it's not really an issue. But immediately his modern morals kick in. He reminds himself that mentally he is an adult man, which makes looking at a child like this a serious crime. The conflict between his past life's ethics and his current world's reality breaks him. He starts screaming that he doesn't understand the laws of this empire anymore, completely crashing to the floor in confusion. Lily, who is just standing there confused, asks him what on earth is wrong. Haru laughs nervously, sweating bullets, and insists that it's absolutely nothing. They are in the bath now, and Lily casually asks Haru to wash her back. Haru completely loses his cool, pointing at himself and yelling in confusion. Lily looks at him with innocent eyes and explains that back at her mansion, getting her back washed is just part of the routine. An image floats into Haru's head of the maids back at the Duke's estate, washing and pampering Lily during her bath time. Lily tilts her head and asks if he dislikes the idea. Haru snaps to attention instantly, bowing politely and declaring that he would be honored to scrub her back. But inside, Haru is fighting for his life. He closes his eyes and starts chanting a mantra to empty his mind, trying desperately to keep his adult thoughts from taking over. Later, they finish up and climb out of the tub. Lily dries herself off with a towel while Haru dries his hair in the background. The scene shifts to the bedroom. They are both in their sleepwear now, sitting down and hydrating after the hot bath. Lily lets out a massive yawn, looking ready to pass out. Haru takes the hint and suggests that since it's late, he should show her to the guest room so she can sleep. Lily responds by diving face-first right onto Haru's bed with a soft thud. She asks him what kind of nonsense he's talking about. She grips the sheets tightly and tells him that there is no guest room involved. It's already decided that they are sleeping together. Lily tries to be playful, lifting the blanket with a seductive look and calling out to him like a wife greeting her husband. Haru shuts that down immediately, telling her he wants her to save that kind of behavior for about 10 years from now. Lily pouts under the covers and complains that he's being boring. She switches gears quickly though, letting out a big yawn and saying goodnight. Haru agrees and says goodnight back, but just then she grabs onto his arm tightly to make sure he stays put. Later, Haru is lying awake in the dark, sweating bullets. He keeps chanting a mantra in his head, desperately reminding himself that his partner is just a child to keep his adult mind in check. Morning comes and Alyssa enters the room. She greets Haru politely and tells Lily it's time to wake up as well. Haru sits up and rubs his eyes, groggily realizing that morning has already arrived. Lily, on the other hand, is still buried deep in the pillow, mumbling that she needs 5 more minutes. Haru looks down at the situation in the bed and freezes in shock. He realizes that the position they woke up in is actually pretty dangerous for his mental state. But then he pauses, putting a hand to his chin. He looks at the scene and thinks that actually this situation isn't so bad in its own way. He gets caught red-handed though. Alyssa notices him staring intently at the sleeping girl and calls his name with a concerned look on her face. Lily is fast asleep, smiling happily as she mumbles out a confession of love for Haru in her dreams. Alyssa catches the moment immediately, giving Haru a teasing smirk and saying that's great news for him. Haru looks exhausted and tells the maid to stop looking at him with those eyes. Later on, Haru is dressed and having a drink. He mentions he's heading to the festival that night and asks Lily what her plans are. Lily doesn't hesitate for a second, immediately declaring that she's going to participate too. She strikes a proud pose, explaining that as Haru's fiancée, it's absolutely necessary for her to learn more about this country. Haru agrees with the idea, suggesting they go together. Since they have some free time until evening, he proposes they take a walk around the town first. Lily lights up instantly, asking if he really means it and saying she's totally looking forward to it. Moving on, Haru and Lily head out into the streets, walking side by side through the bustling town square. They stop at a street stall where Haru holds up 2 fingers to place an order, and the shop girl happily gets it ready for them. Night falls over the city. The narration notes that while the townspeople are out drinking, dancing, and making a ton of noise, the scene is shifting. Haru finishes changing into his ceremonial robes, telling himself that for nobles and the priesthood, this is where the real work actually begins. He adjusts his collar, psyching himself up for what's coming. The scene shifts to the interior of the church. The narration explains that they are carrying out a formal ritual, dedicated to offering thanks to the earth spirits and the sky gods. The pews are filled with people watching as the ceremony gets underway. A bearded official checks in with the group, asking if everyone is prepped and ready for the ritual to start. Back with the main duo, Lily reaches out to fix Haru's hair, smiling sweetly as she tells him the outfit really suits him. Haru smiles back, thanking her for the help. He adds that the ceremonial look suits her really well too. Lily doesn't get shy about the compliment at all. She looks totally proud, telling him that's obvious, after all she is his fiancée. The chatting gets cut short when the official announces that it's time. He tells the group to get moving. The procession begins. Haru, Lily, and the others walk down the center aisle while priestesses stand on either side holding magical flames to light their path. As they walk, Haru notices Lily looks a bit stiff. He asks if she's feeling nervous. Lily clenches her hands tight against her chest and admits she is, asking him if it's that easy to tell. Seeing her nervous, Haru steps up. He tells Lily it's going to be okay and offers his hand, telling her to just hold on to him. Lily takes his hand, looking relieved. She quietly thanks him for the support as they continue walking together. They move past the ceremonial flames, the fire crackling beside them as the ritual proceeds through the church. The ceremony reaches its peak. Both Haru and Lily close their eyes in prayer, offering their respects as the blessing for spirit protection is recited over them. Moving on, the scene shifts forward. Several days have passed since the ceremony at the capital. Outside the estate, it's time for Haru to head back. Lily looks pretty down, blushing as she admits she really doesn't want to part ways with him. Haru holds her hands, smiling reassuringly. He tells her not to worry, they'll definitely meet again soon. Then he remembers something. He says, "Oh, right this," and reaches inside his coat to pull something out. He reveals a sparkling pendant with a black stone. Lily asks what it is, and Haru explains it's special. If she uses it, she can hear his voice no matter how far apart they are. Lily immediately lights up, completely losing her cool. She asks if he really means anytime, and then excitedly declares she's going to contact him every single day. Haru starts sweating a bit, realizing every day might be a bit more than he bargained for. Lily is absolutely beaming, sparkles practically floating around her after receiving the gift. She turns back before leaving and tells Haru that she'll contact him the second she arrives home. As she steps into the carriage to leave, Haru replies that he gets it and he'll be waiting for her call. The carriage rolls out through the estate gates, and Haru stands there waving goodbye until she's gone. Moving on, the scene shifts back to town. Haru is walking past the blacksmith shop when Mei spots him from the second-floor window. She rushes downstairs and runs out to meet him, calling out that it's been a long time since she's seen him. Haru greets her back, but he doesn't waste any time. He immediately holds out a pendant and tells her to take it. Mei looks at it, confused, and asks what it is. Haru explains that it's meant to be an apology for the trouble he caused earlier. He points out the detail, telling her he chose a ruby specifically because it matches the color of her red hair. Mei turns bright red, clearly flustered by the compliment. Haru keeps smiling and explains that just like the other one, this has communication magic imbued in it. He tells her he'd be really happy if she kept it on her and never took it off. Mei gives a sharp salute and cheerfully tells him she understands, accepting his request to wear the pendant. Haru smiles at her reaction and tells her that the necklace really suits her. He adds a quick thank you, appreciating that she likes the gift. Suddenly, Mei remembers something and mentions there's actually something she wants to show him too. She starts rummaging through a wooden chest in the room, and Haru asks what it is. She spins around holding a revolver-style weapon and proudly tells him to take a look at her newly developed invention. She presents the weapon with a flourish, introducing it as the Magic Impact Gun. Haru looks at the device with genuine interest, intrigued by the name and the design. Mei explains the mechanics, pointing out that she designed the gun by applying the principles of the impact magic that Haru uses. She grips the weapon with both hands and tells him to watch closely. Haru stands there looking a bit confused, wondering what she's planning to do inside the shop. Without warning, she fires a round right past him. Haru barely dodges the invisible impact and yells out that it was dangerous. Mei looks incredibly proud of herself, ignoring the near miss to explain the specs. She points out the bullet holes in the wall and says that one magic stone provides enough charge for a set of 6 shots. Haru admits to himself that the invention is amazing, but he also thinks she's kind of crazy for testing it like that. Haru grabs Mei by the shoulders and gets super serious. He warns her that she absolutely cannot show that gun to anyone else. Mei snaps a salute and tells him she understands. They head out into the city, walking through a brick alleyway that looks a bit sketchy. Haru looks around and mentions he hasn't really been to this side of town before, and Mei agrees. Haru keeps scanning the area, muttering that the public safety here is pretty bad, definitely not the kind of place you'd want to walk around alone. Suddenly, Mei notices something and gasps. She points frantically toward a corner filled with barrels and crates, calling out to Haru. Sitting right there on the dirty ground is a little girl, tied up with rope. Haru immediately approaches the kid and asks her what happened. The poor girl is terrified and flinches violently as soon as he speaks to her. Tears start streaming down her face. She manages to tell them that a strange man grabbed her and locked her in a dark place, but she got scared and managed to escape. Hearing this, both Haru and Mei freeze, their expressions turning to pure shock. Haru immediately starts patting the girl's head to calm her down, While he's comforting her, though, he's already thinking to himself that this situation smells like serious trouble. They don't waste any time and take the girl straight to the authorities. The scene shifts to the exterior of a sturdy building marked as the guard corps station. Inside, the officer in charge, a guy with a mustache and a hat, completely loses his cool, shouting out kidnapping, in disbelief after hearing the report. Haru looks serious as he confirms the details, noting that based on what the girl said, the situation is pretty clear. The guards at the station immediately connect the dots. One of the officers suggests that this sounds exactly like the illegal slave hunting rings that have been on the rise lately, and the captain grimly agrees. The captain doesn't waste a second. He points sharply and barks out orders to his men, shouting for Marco to grab Eric and go find the little girl's parents immediately. The subordinate snaps a crisp salute, yelling that he understands and sprints off to get the job done. Thanks to their quick action, everything works out. The scene shifts to show the little girl running into her mother's arms, marking a safe resolution to the scary ordeal. It's an emotional moment as the mother and daughter hold each other tight, both of them in tears now that they're finally back together. Later, Haru looks up at the evening sky as birds fly overhead. He thinks to himself that even though this specific incident was resolved safely, he can't just leave it at that. He needs to think of some real countermeasures for the future. Sometime later, Haru is speaking with his father. The older man brings up the kidnapping case Haru got involved with and shares some news. They actually managed to catch the perpetrator. Haru breathes a sigh of relief, saying that's good to hear. But his father's expression stays serious. He reveals that while they got the henchman, the ringleader at the top managed to escape. They're already sending urgent letters to the neighboring lords to be on the lookout. This news weighs on Haru. He knows exactly how troublesome criminal organizations can be. As long as the boss stays alive, the whole operation will just eventually crawl back out of the woodwork from somewhere else. Haru is in his room, looking a bit worried as he murmurs Lily's name. He's wondering if she managed to get back home safely. He looks out the window, running the numbers in his head. Based on the distance, he figures it would still take her about 2 days to complete the journey. He tries to reassure himself, reasoning that she has excellent guards with her. Surely, a team like that wouldn't lose to some low-level criminal organization. Besides, looking at the bigger picture, he figures no criminal gang would be stupid enough to voluntarily make an enemy out of a duke's family. Haru stares down at the black crystal pendant in his hand. He accepts his own logic, mutters that he's probably right, and tries to relax. Later that night, the room is dark and Haru is fast asleep. Suddenly, a faint voice drifts out from the pendant on the nightstand, whispering his name. Haru's eyes flutter open. He's still half asleep and confused, but the voice comes through again, calling out Haru-kun more clearly this time. He sits up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and looks at the pendant. He recognizes the voice immediately and asks if it's Lily. The crystal suddenly flares with light. Lily's voice screams out from it, desperate and terrified, begging Haru to save her. That wakes him up instantly. Haru bolts upright in bed with a gasp as the scream for help echoes through the room. Haru screams Lily's name into the darkness, completely panicked by the sudden distress call. The black crystal pendant glows brightly in his hand, and Lily's voice comes through clear as day, begging Haru to help her. Haru yells her name again, desperate to get a response and make sure she's still there. He tells himself this isn't a dream and there's no mistake, this is actually happening. He grips the pendant and speaks into it, asking if Lily can hear him. The scene shifts to Lily, who is sitting at a table with a lantern. She cries out in relief, telling Haru that she managed to connect. She lowers her voice to a whisper and explains the situation. She's been captured by thieves. We see her locked inside a cell while 2 large men stand guard just outside the bars. Haru freaks out at the mention of thieves and immediately asks if she's okay. Lily looks at her hands and tries to stay calm. She tells him she's not injured and that it looks like the kidnappers are just after a ransom. Haru doesn't waste a second. He says he understands and sprints down the stairs, asking if she has any idea where she's being held. He runs to a bookshelf and starts pulling out reference materials. Lily's voice replies that she isn't in the dukedom territory yet, but she knows she's in a reasonably large town. Haru scans the titles on the bookshelf and spots the one he needs, grabbing it immediately. He flips the book open to a map section and gets straight to business, asking Lily how long she's been held captive. Lily whispers back that they took her the day before yesterday. She quickly adds that they haven't done anything cruel to her yet, trying to reassure him. Haru studies the map while keeping the connection open. He asks if she noticed any specific features about the kidnappers. Lily thinks back to the attack, knights on the ground and men surrounding the carriage. She tells him there were a lot of them, but for a group of thieves, they were dressed surprisingly clean. Haru tells her he gets it. He tells her to contact him the second anything changes or happens. Lily agrees quietly, just saying his name. Haru pauses, noticing a change in her voice. Lily can't keep up the brave act anymore. Tears start streaming down her face and she admits she's actually really scared. Haru's expression softens immediately. He tells her it's going to be okay and promises that he will definitely save her no matter what. He clenches his fist tight, completely locking in his resolve to get her back. Haru starts piecing the timeline together, calculating that the attack happened exactly on the third day after Lily's group left Hateberg. He connects the dots, realizing there's a large town situated just before the Duke's territory that matches that 3-day travel distance perfectly. He points to the location on the map, confirming his target. It's the town of Canard. According to the map data, Canard is a town of about 10,000 people sitting 200 kilometers southwest of the capital. Haru sends one last fierce promise to Lily, telling her to hang tight because he is absolutely coming to save her. Back in his room, Haru springs into action. He throws on his clothes and immediately calls out to Mei through his communication channel. Mei is sound asleep in her bed. She wakes up rubbing her eyes, groggily asking what could possibly be happening in the middle of the night. Haru apologizes for the wake-up call, but he tells her it's a straight-up emergency and he needs her help right now. Mei grips her communication pendant tight, her expression sharpening as she asks to confirm if it's really an emergency. Haru is already dashing down the stairs, telling her he's on his way to her place immediately. Mei acknowledges the command, confirming she's ready. Haru arrives at Mei's place completely winded, panting for breath after his sprint. Mei spots him immediately and calls out his name in surprise. Haru doesn't waste time with greetings. He looks Mei dead in the eye and tells her that Lily has been kidnapped and he needs to get to the town of Canard right now. He desperately asks if she has any magic tools that can handle long-distance travel. Mei looks a bit unsure, admitting that technically she does have something for transport, but she hesitates. Haru perks up instantly, taking that as a yes. Mei trails off, adding a heavy however as she leads him to the storage area. The doors open with a bang, revealing a massive metal contraption sitting in the yard. It looks like a bizarre cross between a torpedo and a bicycle with wings. Mei introduces the machine, calling it her fastest magic tool. The albatross. Haru stares at the thing, completely baffled by its shape, and asks her what exactly this thing is supposed to be. Mei explains that she actually built it using the paper airplane concept Haru had mentioned to her before as a reference. She tells him it's a vehicle designed to fly through the sky using impact magic for propulsion. Haru is losing his mind. He realizes she essentially invented aviation based on a toy story he told her, thinking to himself that this is a total scientific paradigm shift and that this girl is terrifyingly smart. But then Mei drops the bad news. She explains that the machine has a major flaw. Just to fly for a few minutes, the fuel efficiency is terrible, requiring at least 3 C-rank magic stones. Haru isn't fazed by the fuel problem at all. He flashes a confident smile, points a thumb at his chest, and tells Mei to leave it to him. This is exactly what he's here for. He starts running the numbers in his head, figuring that if he pours about half of his total magic capacity into the machine, he can easily power a flight of 200 kilometers. He's basically going to be the living battery for this thing. Haru is hyped, thanking Mei profusely because this machine means he can actually save Lily. Mei, watching him get so worked up over this girl, quietly asks if Lily is his fiancée. But before he can really answer, Mei gets a serious look on her face. She asks him to take her along on the rescue mission. Haru just looks at her, confused. Mei explains her reasoning. She says that if anything were to happen to Haru's fiancé, he would obviously be devastated. She looks down, admitting that seeing him sad isn't something she wants to deal with. Haru just stares at her for a second, softening up a bit at her concern. Mei looks back up, totally determined now. She tells him that she knows for a fact she can be useful to him if he brings her along. Haru smiles and agrees, thanking her for the help. Mei brushes it off immediately, saying it's only natural since they're friends. Mei suggests they start by heading outside the city limits so they have room to work. Haru agrees. He tightens his gloves and activates his body-strengthening magic to prep for the heavy lifting. He hoists the massive machine up, grunting under the weight while Mei follows along. Haru carries the entire rocket-like vehicle on his shoulder, sneaking past the guards. While the guard at the gate yawns, they slip by unnoticed and make their escape into the open fields. Once they're clear, Mei hops on and fires up the machine. She announces the start of the impact engine, and the thing roars to life. Haru notes that the engine makes a pretty intense sound. Mei casually drops a bomb on him, explaining that theoretically, this thing should reach speeds of about 300 kilometers per hour. Haru's face goes pale. He instantly connects the dots to his past life, realizing that 300 kilometers per hour is basically the same speed as a bullet train. The idea of flying that fast in this contraption freaks him out. Mei interrupts his panic by handing him a pair of goggles, telling him to hop in. Haru points a finger at himself, totally confused, and asks if he's supposed to be the one driving. Mei confirms it without skipping a beat. Since the system draws mana directly from the pilot to run, he's the only one who can fly it. Haru stares at the goggles, sweating bullets. He realizes he has to fly a plane completely blind with 0 practice runs. But then he thinks of Lily, telling himself that if he doesn't do this right now, she's in serious trouble. Haru makes up his mind and tells Mei they are heading out. Mei gives a firm nod and confirms she is ready to go. Haru cranks the throttle and the machine responds instantly. The speedometer needle shoots up, and with a high-pitched whine the wheels lift off the ground. They actually get airborne. As the machine soars through the sky, Haru is amazed that it's really flying, while Mei cheers from the backseat that her experiment is a massive success. Haru is confused by her wording, but Mei cheerfully drops the bomb. This is the first time a human has ever actually flown in this thing. Haru completely loses it. He screams over the wind, asking what the hell is wrong with her and realizing he's stuck in a cockpit with a total mad scientist. But he pushes the fear aside and focuses on the mission. He thinks of Lily, telling her to just wait a little longer because he is absolutely coming to save her. A while later, Mei points ahead, announcing that they are just about to reach the town of Canard. Haru looks down and spots the lights of a settlement glowing in the darkness below, asking if that's their destination. He tells Mei to hold on tight because he's initiating the landing sequence, and Mei responds with a loud confirmation. Haru and Mei bring the albatross down for a landing, the wheels screeching as they make contact with the ground near the outskirts of the town. It's a bumpy ride. Mei looks completely locked in behind her goggles, but Haru is holding on for dear life, looking like he's regretting every life choice that led to this moment. They finally come to a stop. Haru announces the landing was successful, though he looks visibly shaken and thinks he actually almost died just now. Mei, on the other hand, is beaming and declaring the whole thing a massive success. Haru switches into mission mode. He instructs Mei that they're leaving the machine right there and will come back to recover it once the job is done. Mei gives him a crisp salute and confirms the order. Haru says it's time to move out. He psyches himself up with a quick all right and leads the way into the bushes with Mei following close behind. Now hidden in the cover of the trees, Haru grabs his communication amulet. He calls out to Lily, asking if she can hear him and telling her to respond if the connection is working. Over where Lily is being held, her matching pendant begins to glow. She looks at it in surprise, realizing it's Haru calling, and asks what's going on. Back in the bushes, Haru lets out a huge sigh of relief. He tells Mei that Lily responded and it seems like she's safe for now. He immediately starts gathering intel. He speaks into the amulet again, asking Lily if she's able to see what's outside from her position. Lily rushes to the barred window of her room. She looks out and reports back that she can see a white wall and further off in the distance, a tower. Haru focuses his attention, muttering the word tower as he scans the area for the landmark Lily mentioned. He spots a church-like building with a tall spire rising above the other rooftops and realizes that has to be the target. Speaking into the amulet, Haru lays out the plan. He tells Lily he's going to climb that tower right now and needs her to let him know the moment he appears in her direct line of sight. Lily listens intently from her cell and whispers back a quick confirmation that she understands what to do. Before heading up, Haru turns to Mei and orders her to stay on the ground and keep a lookout for any approaching enemies. Mei gives a crisp reply, confirming she's got the perimeter covered. Haru takes a breath to steady himself and activates his magic gear, preparing to scale the building. He shouts bind and fires a black magical wire that shoots upward, snapping tight around the upper structure of the tower. Using the wire to hoist himself up the vertical wall, Haru speaks into the amulet again, asking Lily if she can see him yet. From her window, Lily spots a tiny silhouette dangling off the distant tower. She excitedly reports back that she has a visual on him. But then she drops the reality of the situation. She tells him that he's actually positioned quite far away from where she is. Haru's eye widens in shock, unable to believe she can spot him from that kind of distance. Haru decides to bridge the distance visually since he's physically too far away. He activates his telescopic vision magic, figuring this is the only way to establish direct eye contact with her. The magic works instantly. Haru locks onto her location and calls out that he's found her, shouting her name to let her know he's there. Lily peers through the gap in her window, and the moment she spots him, her face lights up and she calls back to him. With the target confirmed, Haru wastes no time. He slides rapidly down the magical wire he set up, shouting to May that he's located Lily and they need to move fast. He tells himself that getting her out is the only thing that matters right now. Once he hits the ground, Haru lays out the escape strategy. He tells May that he'll handle the actual extraction, but once Lily is free, May needs to take her and run back to the tower they just came from. May gives a sharp confirmation that she's ready. Moving on, they infiltrate the building and spot a guard with a mustache patrolling near a door. Haru and May creep up silently behind him. The guard senses them at the last second and starts to yell, asking who they are, but Haru doesn't let him finish. He steps in and delivers a precise chop to the man's neck, knocking him out cold instantly. Haru immediately drops to a crouch and activates his active sonar to sweep the area. He checks the feedback and confirms that there are no other hostile reactions nearby. With the coast clear, Haru and May rush to the cell door. Haru creates a magical light in his hand and gently tells Lily that he's finally there to save her. Lily presses herself against the iron bars, looking at him with tears in her eyes, relieved to finally see him up close. Haru stands on the other side of the bars and tells Lily to stay back from the door because it's going to be dangerous. Lily nods and says she understands. Haru gets the door open and they don't waste a second. Lily rushes into his arms for a tight hug. Haru calls her name and she calls his right back, just happy to be safe. But they can't hang around for a reunion. May calls out from the hallway, waving her arm and telling both of them they need to move this way immediately. The three of them take off running down the corridor with Haru in the lead. As they run, May speaks up to Lily. She says she knows Lily probably has a lot on her mind right now, but it would really help if she just followed them silently for the moment. Lily looks over, feeling guilty. She apologizes to May, specifically saying she's sorry for calling her a thieving cat earlier. May looks a bit surprised, but she brushes it off with a smile. She tells Lily not to worry about that stuff and to just focus on hurrying. Lily smiles back at her and says thank you, clearing the air between them as they run. Up ahead, Haru lets out a breath of relief now that he has Lily secured. But his expression shifts to something darker. He decides it's time to hand out some punishment to the arrogant guys who pulled this stunt. Just then, Lily calls out to him from behind. Haru keeps moving but asks her what's up. Before they leave, Lily stops for a second. She looks at Haru with a worried expression and begs him to please save her guards who were captured too. Haru flashes her a confident grin and tells her to leave it to him, he's got it covered. Haru heads toward the holding cells with a serious vibe. He declares that tonight is going to be a bloodbath and he's not letting a single one of these kidnappers escape. He bursts into the guard area and doesn't waste time talking. He unleashes a shockwave that sends the enemy jailers flying through the air before they even know what hit them. Looking down at the terrified enemies, Haru mocks them. He asks if they really thought they could make an enemy of a duke's household with such a pathetic level of strength. With the enemies down, Haru walks up to the large barred door where the prisoners are kept. He grabs the heavy padlock, and with a quick burst of magic, the lock snaps right off. Haru opens the door and calls out into the darkness, asking if the duke's escort squad is in there. Inside the cell, 3 armored knights are looking pretty rough. They stare back at their rescuer in confusion and ask who exactly he is. Haru doesn't hesitate. He drops his full noble title to get their attention, introducing himself as Eberhard Karlheinz von Fahrenheit, and he adds the title Lily's fiancé just to make it crystal clear who he represents. The knights are completely stunned to hear that name, shouting out Lord Eberhard in disbelief. But Haru cuts them off immediately, telling them they can be surprised later. Right now he needs to know if they can move. The knights are relieved to be out of the cell. One of them immediately thanks Haru for the save but asks the most important question, where is the young lady? Haru assures them she's already secured. He explains that she's currently holed up in the bell tower with his comrade, and he wants some of them to head over there for defense. One of the knights, a guy named Felix, confirms the order but stops to give Haru a serious warning. He says that among these enemies, there is one specific guy who is completely unrivaled in strength. Felix warns Haru to be extremely careful of this guy. He describes the enemy as looking like a washed-up adventurer who wields a bastard sword. Looking pretty shaken just thinking about it, the knight adds that he estimates the guy's strength is at least a rank. Speak of the devil, right at that moment, a man with a bastard sword appears behind them. He looks around at the defeated jailers and asks what kind of mess this is while he took his eyes off things for a second. Without hesitating, the swordsman launches a sudden attack. As a slash cuts through the air, he mocks them for flinching, while another knight shouts out Felix's name in panic. The swordsman stands there with a smug grin on his face. He calls them noisy scum and asks why they're trying to run away. Felix, looking beat up and sweating, points a trembling finger at the new arrival. He yells to Haru that this is him, this is the guy he was talking about. Haru glances back calmly while the swordsman keeps running his mouth. The enemy taunts the knights again, asking if the trash that already lost to him is really trying to escape. The swordsman shuts down any idea of them escaping. He tells them that would be a problem because his employer would get pretty pissed off at him. Haru questions the word employer, and right on cue, a voice calls out from the shadows, introducing himself to the little gentleman. A bald, heavy-set man with a handlebar mustache steps into the light, puffing on a cigar. Haru stares him down, trying to place him. The guy starts casually venting about his work struggles. He complains that lately, regulations have been tightening up everywhere and lets out a sigh about how his business has completely tanked because of it. He continues his little monologue, mentioning that while slaves still sell for a high price, he had no choice but to pivot. Just as he was thinking about starting a hostage business instead, he got lucky. He explains that he received intel from a certain source that the Duke's daughter would be going on a long trip. The merchant grins around his cigar, looking thoroughly pleased with himself. He starts claiming that you could say the heavens are already taking his side on this one. The swordsman puts a hand on his boss's shoulder as the merchant continues, asking rhetorically if calling it divine intervention would really be an exaggeration. The merchant keeps bragging, noting how fortunate it is that he has such a famous bodyguard in his employ. He finishes his thought while the focus settles on the swordsman, adding that it's also quite lucky to have made a connection with the famous wind cutter Felix. The merchant is practically drooling over the situation now. He shouts that this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to get his hands on both the Duke's daughter and the heir to the Margrave family at the same time. While the bad guy celebrates, Haru's expression darkens. He thinks to himself that he's actually relieved. Knowing these guys are such refreshing levels of human scum makes things a lot easier for him. Haru drops the serious look and puts on a clueless face. He asks who this wind cutter Felix guy is supposed to be, claiming he's never heard of him. That strikes a nerve. The swordsman snaps back, asking if the kid seriously doesn't know who he is, a former A-rank adventurer. Haru just makes a mocking face and sticks his tongue out. He tells the guy that, unfortunately, he's used to being around people way stronger than him, so he's not impressed at all. The swordsman completely loses his cool, a vein popping on his forehead. He says he's going to play with the brat for a bit, but warns that the nursery fee is going to be expensive. Haru smiles calmly, noting that it doesn't matter how much a thug tries to act tough. The swordsman's face goes cold, and he simply whispers that he's going to kill him. He brings his sword down hard, but Haru catches the blade, blocking the strike instantly with his own gear. The swordsman freezes, sweat forming on his face. He admits the kid is actually pretty good and asks if he's really just a child. Haru maintains his confident stance, but he's sweating just a little bit. He admits to the swordsman that he was actually putting some serious effort into that last move. Haru doesn't wait around. He jumps backward to create some distance and immediately fires off a blast of magic from his hand to keep the enemy back. The dust settles, and the swordsman is still standing there looking impressed. He admits to himself that he's genuinely surprised by the kid's skill. The swordsman turns to his employer with a cruel grin. He calls the guy a fake merchant and asks if it's okay for him to just cut the kid down right now. The merchant sighs heavily, clearly annoyed. He grumbles about being called a fake, but then firmly tells the swordsman he absolutely cannot kill the boy since he's a valuable source of income. He mutters under his breath about how annoying washed-up adventure battle junkies can be. The swordsman looks completely unhinged now. He yells back that there's no way he can hold back when he's in the middle of such a fun death match. While they argue, Haru charges up magic in both hands, looking pretty irritated. He shouts at them to stop having a conversation while leaving him out of it. The merchant sees the magic building up and lets out a terrified squeak as his eyes go wide. Haru unleashes a massive blast of impact magic. The swordsman reacts instantly, moving at high speed to weave around the attack. The swordsman comes out of the dodge smiling and sweating. He laughs and says that was way too close, admitting he's never seen a technique like that before. Haru looks at his opponent, sweating a little. He can't believe the guy managed to defend against his attack on the very first try. The swordsman flashes a confident grin and introduces himself. He tells Haru his nickname is Wind Cutter, explaining that he's got the name because he's fast enough to cut through the wind itself. He tells the kid to remember it. Then he adds a dark little taunt, saying that Haru is going to die soon anyway, so it might not matter much. Haru decides to play along. He says that if the guy is going to introduce himself, he might as well do the same. Thumbing his chest with pride, Haru declares that while he doesn't have a fancy nickname yet, he's the one who will eventually inherit the title of Northern General. As he says it, the imposing image of his father, the war demon, looms behind him. The swordsman looks absolutely delighted by this news. He says fighting the next northern general means he has no shortage of a worthy opponent, though he admits it's a bit of a shame that Haru is so young. But the merchant is done with their chatter. He screams at the swordsman to hurry up and finish the job. He yells that he doesn't care if Haru loses an arm or a leg at this point, just as long as the kid is left alive. Hearing that, Haru's gaze sharpens. He calls out the guy for finally showing his true, brutal nature as a fake merchant. The swordsman sighs and gets into a serious stance, readying his blade. He tells Haru that since his employer is getting angry, playtime is officially over. The next move will be for real. Haru smiles back, trying to look confident, and says he won't hold back either. But internally, he's assessing his limited options. He knows his only real play here is to use his massive mana reserves to unleash a total saturation attack of impact magic. The swordsman doesn't waste any time. He lunges straight for Haru with his blade drawn, screaming at the brat to just die already. Haru stands his ground and snaps back, telling the guy that thugs like him should be rotting quietly in a jail cell. To back up his words, Haru unleashes a technique called Impact Barrage, firing off a rapid-fire volley of invisible magic bullets from his fingertips. But the swordsman is barely fazed. He mocks the attack for being too lukewarm and effortlessly deflects every single shot with his sword, shouting a battle cry as he tears through the magic. He's fast, cutting through the barrage and closing the distance between them with a confident grin on his face. Seeing his attacks get brushed aside, Haru realizes he has to switch tactics. He mutters that it can't be helped, he's going to have to use that move. He drops low and slams his palm onto the floor, activating a spell called Landmine Field that sends energy surging through the ground. That stops the swordsman dead in his tracks. He freezes up, suddenly wary of the dangerous terrain beneath his feet. Haru takes advantage of that split-second hesitation. While his opponent is focused on the ground, Haru charges up a dense, swirling ball of magical energy in his hands. With a shout, he launches the attack, an explosive shockwave bullet, firing the massive projectile straight at the swordsman. The explosive shockwave bullet lands dead on. The swordsman crosses his arms to shield himself, screaming out as the blast engulfs him. Smoke sizzles and rises from the impact zone. Haru stands ready, watching the cloud intently to see if that finished the job. It didn't. The swordsman steps out of the smoke, battered and panting heavily, but he's got a twisted grin plastered on his face. He's actually enjoying this. Haru breaks a sweat, stunned by the guy's durability. He thinks to himself that this enemy is ridiculously tough. The swordsman doesn't give him a second to think. He lunges forward with renewed aggression, screaming at Haru to just die already. Haru isn't backing down, though. He snaps back that he has no intention of dying in a place like this and prepares his counter. He shifts into a martial arts stance and activates a technique called Wild Dance, rushing forward with erratic movements. The swordsman tries to track him, yelling at the kid not to underestimate him just because he landed one hit. But he's too slow. Haru triggers Blink, accelerating instantly to bypass the guy's guard and driving a fist straight into his face. The impact is brutal. Haru follows through with a technique called Jaw Crush, sending a shockwave right through the swordsman's skull. Haru is moving fast, having realized during the exchange that the swordsman is specifically targeting his arms to disable him. The swordsman wipes some blood from his face, looking weirdly satisfied. He tells Haru that it's almost a waste to kill someone with that much talent, but then adds that plucking a young bud before it blooms is actually the best feeling in the world. In the background, the slave merchant is holding his head in his hands, terrified by his own bodyguard, muttering that the guy is a complete battle maniac. The swordsman ignores his boss and focuses on Haru, asking the kid straight up why he's so strong. Haru doesn't hide it. He tells the guy that he's been training continuously since the moment he was born, so he'd appreciate it if he wasn't lumped in with the normal kids in the neighborhood. The swordsman laughs, blood dripping down his chin. He comments that the world sure is full of interesting people, admitting he's never met a brat like Haru before. He adds with a dark grin that he wouldn't want to run into another one either. Haru stands his ground, signaling that talk time is over. He declares that this is the end. The swordsman readies his blade, admitting that his body is just about at its limit too. But despite the damage, he breaks into a creepy, manic grin and invites Haru to dance one last fun dance with him. Haru assesses his situation, noting that his remaining magic power is running pretty low. He starts charging up energy in his hands anyway, telling the swordsman flat out that he has no hobby of dancing with other dudes. The swordsman lunges forward with a wild swing, calling Haru a cold guy before screaming at the kid to just die. Haru thrusts his hand forward to meet the attack, shouting back that the swordsman is the one who's going down. Their attacks collide head-on, causing a massive explosion as both of them roar over the noise. Images of Mei and Lily flash through Haru's mind, fueling his determination. He tells himself he absolutely will not lose this fight. It turns into a battle of will as Haru and the swordsman scream in each other's faces, neither one backing down an inch. Moving on to the next scene, Haru has seemingly broken away from the fight. He runs up to Mei in the hallway, telling her to hurry up because he's located Lily and her rescue is their top priority. Haru lays out the plan quickly. He tells Mei that he'll handle getting Lily out, but he needs Mei to take her and run to a safe place immediately after. Mei says she understands, but she's not just going to stand around. She starts rummaging through her gear with a confident smile, telling Haru that she's going to be helpful too. Mei shows off her new gear with a flourish, holding up a heavy-looking magic gun. She proudly declares that with this bad boy, she's going to blast those wicked scoundrels from the shadows. Haru gives her a confident fist pump, smiling and telling her that she's actually pretty reliable. Turning his attention back to the threat, Haru takes a moment to mentally register Mei's weapon, the magic impact gun. The fight resumes instantly, and the swordsman is caught completely off guard, his head snapping back with a confused grunt as he takes a hit. Haru doesn't give him a second to breathe. He thrusts his palms forward, charging up a massive burst of magic and screaming as he unleashes everything he has. The attack connects with devastating force, creating a huge cloud of impact smoke and debris that fills the room while Haru stands his ground. As the dust settles, the swordsman is revealed slumped against a cracked wall, totally out of commission. The slave merchant watching from the side loses his mind, screaming that this is impossible. Haru wipes the sweat from his face, letting out a breath and confirming that he won. Meanwhile, up in the tower, the window of Lily's cell is visible in the distance. Haru walks over to inspect the damage. He looks down at the defeated swordsman, actually impressed that the guy is merely unconscious after taking a beating like that. Deciding not to take any chances, Haru figures it would be a disaster if this guy woke up for round 2. He extends his hand and casts Binding, wrapping the unconscious enemy in black magical restraints to keep him down for good. With the battle over, the swordsman is shown completely restrained, bound tight by Haru's magic and slumped on the floor in defeat. Lily rushes forward, ignoring the knights and guards, and calls out to Haru. She looks at him with pure relief, telling him how glad she is that he's safe. Haru brushes it off with a confident smile, telling her there's no way he would lose. But then his expression softens, and he admits that he was actually really scared because he was so worried about her. Mei chimes in from the side with a smile, adding that she's just glad Lily is safe too. Lily quietly thanks her. Haru gives a bright, charming grin and says that, after all, he wouldn't be much of a fiancé if he didn't come running when the heroine was in danger. Hearing this, Lily softly calls Haru's name again. He turns to her, asking what's up. Without warning, Lily leans in and plants a kiss right on Haru's cheek, catching him completely off guard. She pulls back, blushing but looking him straight in the eyes, and tells him that she loves him. In the background, Mei completely loses it. She screams in panic, yelling that Lily just pulled a fast one and made her move first. Mei completely loses it, wailing that she can't forgive this just because Lily has heroine status. Lily, on the other hand, just looks away with a dismissive little snort, totally unbothered by the jealousy. Haru lets out a long, tired sigh, feeling the weight of the day lift off his shoulders. And just like that, the curtain officially falls on the Lily kidnapping incident. Later on, the scene shifts to the front of the mansion. The Duke bows his head to Haru, thanking him sincerely for everything he did. He admits that as a father, he doesn't even know how to put his gratitude into words. Haru bows back respectfully with his hand on his chest, telling the Duke to please raise his head. He plays it cool, saying he only did what was natural for a fiancé to do. The Duke keeps his head down, though. He insists that the fault lies with him because he was the one who decided to reduce the security detail to such a small number. But Felix steps in immediately. He asks the Duke what he's talking about, arguing that since this incident happened in their territory, he's the one who needs to take full responsibility. The other knights kneel along with Felix, looking desperate. They shout that their lack of strength caused everything and declare they're ready to apologize with their lives. The Duke freaks out, yelling at them to stop talking like that. Before things get too grim, Haru jumps in with a bright smile and a wink. He suggests they handle things a different way. Haru raises a finger and lays out a better plan. Instead of punishments, he says everyone should take responsibility by making sure this never happens again. He tells them to use this failure as a lesson for the future. The Duke looks at Haru, clearly impressed by the kid's maturity. He wipes a bit of sweat from his face and agrees that Haru has the right idea. Felix steps up to the plate, making a solemn vow. He promises the Duke and Haru that he will never let an incident like this happen in their territory ever again. He doubles down on that promise, swearing that next time, he will protect the young lady even if he has to trade his own life to do it. Haru decides to keep the mood light. He smiles and suggests they leave the boring details for later and just wrap things up here for the time being. As things wind down, Felix acts like a solid wingman. He tells Haru to go be by Lily's side, pointing out that she's definitely wanting to be with him right now. Felix gives him a knowing smirk and adds that he's asking this as a personal favor, too. Haru takes the advice to heart. He gives a respectful nod and says he understands. Later, the scene shifts to a private room inside the mansion. The Duke sits across from Haru and shifts his tone completely, declaring that from here on out it's time for adult talk. Getting straight to business, Haru reports that he discovered some disturbing facts regarding the guard team's misconduct during his rescue mission. The Duke leans in and asks him what exactly happened. Haru drops the bomb. He reveals that sympathizers of a group called the Canyon Faction had infiltrated the guard team in the town of Canard. The Duke completely loses his composure. He shouts out in shock, unable to believe that the Canyon Faction is involved. Following the revelation about the Canyon Faction, the mood in the room gets heavy. The Duke notes that this incident runs deeper than they thought. It's got some serious darkness behind it. The scene cuts to a dimly lit room where the bad guys are conspiring. A figure completely hidden in a dark cloak stands behind a desk and asks how the operation is looking from their end. Standing across from the hooded figure is a man with short hair. He confidently reports that there aren't any problems and everything is proceeding exactly according to plan. This guy, who's wearing priest robes with a cross necklace, adds a small caveat though. He mentions that the guards got captured, which means the central government will probably sniff out the anomaly and come looking. The hooded figure takes that in and decides it's crunch time. He says that if they're going to make a major move, it has to be now or never. Time passes, a lot of it. The story jumps forward 3 years. We see the outside of the Adventurers Guild, which looks as busy as ever. Inside the guild hall, the place is rowdy and full of drinkers. A guy waves across the room and calls out to someone he calls the Silver Comet, telling him he looks like he's in top form again today. The person he's talking to is Haru, but he looks a bit different now. He's wearing a fancy eye mask to hide his identity. Haru waves back and greets the guy, calling him Ernst, and points out that Ernst himself brought in a pretty impressive haul. Ernst, a guy with distinctive facial tattoos, laughs it off. He tells Haru he can't compete with Silver, adding that even though Haru is still just a kid, his title as an S-rank adventurer definitely isn't just for show. The mood is festive. Some other guys in the background shout out a proposal to grab a drink for both Ernst and Silver, and Ernst turns to acknowledge the cheers. Ernst is totally ready to party, pumping his fist in the air and shouting for everyone to head out. But Haru kills the vibe immediately. He waves his hand and apologizes, telling them he can't join because he has to head home, but he'll catch them next time. Ernst isn't letting him off that easy, though. He leans in, calling Haru cold and swearing that one of these days he's going to see the face under that mask. Haru just gives a vague agreement and laughs it off awkwardly. Walking through the town streets alone, Haru reflects on the time that's passed. He's 13 now and he's finally hit a growth spurt. Then he thinks about the people waiting for him. There's his fiancée, Lily. On the surface, she aged exactly as expected, growing into a totally proper and lovely young lady. But that's strictly physical. Inside, she's actually become even more of a wild tomboy, waving frantically and yelling his name the second she spots him. She hasn't just been playing around, though. Surprisingly, she actually managed to learn magic during these last 3 years. Then there's his other childhood friend, May. Haru notes that she went through a serious transformation of her own. May latches onto Haru's arm, snuggling up tight and pressing against him. Haru is pretty much panicking internally, thinking that her physical development is getting a little too outrageous. But it's not just the girls who changed. Haru pulls up his status window, confirming that he's become considerably stronger himself over the last 3 years. Haru thinks back on his training days, specifically the Northern General War God style, back. He notes that the training for this style was absolutely brutal. He managed to master the external form known as General's Armor pretty quickly. It took him less than half a year. But the technique called mat, or clad, was a different story. Haru recalls that mastering that one took a ridiculous amount of time and effort. The scene shifts to a memory of that training. His father stands in the courtyard and calls out Haru's noble name, Eberhard. His dad looks at him and says that since Haru is so good at handling mana, he should be able to figure this out. Then he asks Haru what the actual difference is between normal body strengthening and mat. To clarify, the narration explains that standard body strengthening just means concentrating your mana into the specific body part you want to make stronger or activate. Haru answers his father, saying that mat isn't like that. He explains that instead of focusing on one spot, it feels like the mana is permeating every single detail of his entire body at once. His dad smiles at the response and tells Haru that he's actually pretty close to the truth. But then his expression sharpens, becoming serious. He tells Haru that while he's close, he can't say that's the correct answer just yet. He continues, admitting that circulating mana to every corner of the body isn't technically wrong, but there's more to it. Haru looks completely stumped and asks his dad how exactly he's supposed to do that. He immediately loses his cool, scratching his head aggressively and yelling that he just doesn't know the answer. But right in the middle of his frustration, a metaphorical light bulb turns on. Haru stops, realizing he might have figured it out. His dad notices the shift in attitude and asks if he came up with something, telling him to go ahead and try it one more time. The war demon cracks his knuckles with a grin, telling Haru to bring it on. Haru gives his answer. He says it's the pulse, or to be more accurate, the blood. His dad confirms that he's correct. He explains that the secret to the matoi technique circulating mana throughout the entire body lies in the blood itself. He breaks down the theory, explaining that normal body strengthening is just about concentrating mana into whatever specific part you want to make stronger. He admits that while you can get tough doing that, there's unfortunately a hard limit to how far that method can take you. However, the war god style flips the script. He explains that their style strengthens the body by switching to a completely new concept, and that method is about to be revealed. The war demon breaks down the mechanics of the secret technique, calling it blood mana mixture. He explains the process with a mental diagram. First, you compress mana in the heart, then mix that mana directly into the blood, and finally circulate that charged blood through the vessels to every corner of the body. He continues explaining how it manifests physically. Once the mana courses through the bloodstream to the whole body, it sprays out lightly from the sweat glands, covering the skin in a thin layer. Since this layer covers the user like a garment, the technique is called matoi, or clad. But then the war demon drops a serious warning. He tells Haru to be careful and says that when starting out, he must absolutely not try to do the blood mana mixture directly inside his heart. Haru asks why that's off limits. His dad looks him dead in the eye and gives a blunt answer. If he messes up the regulation even a little bit, he'll die. He elaborates on the danger, mentioning that in the past, people have collapsed right in the middle of training and died. He adds that others have had their hearts simply stop beating from the strain. The war demon admits that controlling this adjustment is endlessly difficult. However, he emphasizes the reward, explaining that if one can master it, they obtain a tough body and combat power that surpasses human limits. He states proudly that the reason the Fahrenheit family possesses such outstanding combat power is specifically because they can use this mat technique. Haru is left stunned, muttering that it's amazing. His dad concedes that it will take time to learn, but he's confident Haru can do it. He even gives his son a massive compliment, noting that as far as he knows, there aren't many past family heads who had as much raw talent as Haru does. Haru looks his dad dead in the eye, fully accepting the challenge. He says he's going to do his best. Actually, he declares he's going to work hard and prove he can defeat him. And just like that, the brutal training regimen kicks off. We see a montage of what he's dealing with. While his mom cheers happily from the sidelines yelling at them to practice, Haru is stuck fighting giant slimes and using his magic hands to defend himself. After getting beat up all day, Haru soaks in an outdoor hot spring, looking completely exhausted as he tries to recover his stamina. Moving on, about a year passes of this routine. We see the results immediately. Haru stands there with a fiery aura rising from his body. He's finally managed to master the blood mana mixture technique. His dad notices the progress and gives a nod of approval, telling him he's cleared the first stage. Then his expression shifts a bit and he calls out Haru's noble name, Eberhard. Haru wonders what's up. The war demon gets a bit contemplative here. He admits that he doesn't know all the details himself, since this is just something he heard from his late father, Haru's grandfather, Klaus. He explains that the technique, which he calls the general's armor, seems to be picky. It actually chooses its user. Because of that picky nature, the technique was actually lost to history at one point. Haru is shocked to hear it went extinct. Crossing his arms, Haru's dad starts breaking down the lore. He explains that originally the technique they call mat, or clad, is actually the legendary general's armor. Picking up from the lore drop, the narration reveals that this legendary technique was apparently only truly complete when two specific elements were brought together. Haru's dad looks him dead in the eye and puts the burden squarely on his shoulders. He tells Haru that he is the one who has to complete this technique. He points out that even though Haru hasn't fully mastered the clad technique yet, there's still a path forward. His dad suggests that if Haru can manage to connect these two elements, he might just be able to create something perfect. Haru stares down at his own gloved hand, letting that sink in. He realizes the massive weight of what he's being asked to do. He's basically being tasked with reviving the entire war god style from extinction. Suddenly, the scene shifts. We're back in the present day, and Haru is dressed in formal clothes, standing in a dining room. He explains that because of that history and those circumstances back then, he's now using both the general's armor and mat styles. It turns out he was spacing out while standing at the dinner table. His dad, sitting at the head of the table, asks Eberhard what's wrong and tells him to hurry up and take his seat. Haru snaps back to reality, looking a bit embarrassed. He apologizes to the family and mentions he was just lost in thought for a moment. With everyone finally settled, the focus shifts to the fancy dinner spread in front of them, and the call is made to start eating. The whole family is there: Haru, his parents, his older sister Noelle, and even two younger siblings. They all cheer happily in unison, ready to tear into a giant roast bird. Moving on, the story jumps ahead to the very next day in town. Haru walks through the town streets and calls out as he approaches the workshop, letting Mei know he's just about there. Mei responds from inside, sounding upbeat. She tells him her preparations are just about done and asks him to hang tight outside for a second. Haru gives a quick confirmation that he's waiting. A moment later, Mei steps out to meet him. She waves happily, greeting him and noting that it's been a while since they met up like this. Getting right to business, Haru asks how her research and development is coming along. Mei looks pretty satisfied with herself and reports that she's finally reached a major milestone with her work. She smiles and adds that because things went so well, there's actually something specific she wants to hand over to him right now. Haru looks intrigued by the offer. Mei proudly presents a beautifully crafted blade. She introduces it as his new armament, the magic sword Reikiri. She starts explaining the backstory of its creation, noting that the research required to properly draw out the mysterious power of orichalcum was a nightmare. She honestly didn't think it would end up taking this many years to crack the code. Even though it was a grind to figure out the mechanics, she assures him that the payoff was worth it. The weapon's power is absolutely massive. She hands the hilt over to him and urges him to channel his magic into it immediately. She has a mischievous look on her face, telling him she's pretty sure something interesting is about to happen. Haru decides to give it a shot. He says let's see and tells Mei he's going to start channeling his magic through the hilt. As soon as the energy flows, the weapon reacts. A blade-like form manifests from the hilt with a sharp humming sound. Haru stares at the result. He asks if the thing actually activated properly, since it looks a bit different than a normal sword. Mei assures him that there's no mistake, it's working. She tells him to go ahead and try giving it a test swing. Haru hesitates, looking pretty nervous. He asks if it's really safe and wants to confirm it won't just blow up in his face. Mei gives him a big thumbs up and says it's probably fine. Haru completely freezes up at the word probably. He doesn't look reassured at all. Mei clarifies what she means. She explains that she doesn't get the sense it will unleash some explosive force. Instead, she tells him she feels a presence from the blade that's terrifying in a very quiet way. Taking her word for it, Haru swings the blade down toward the ground. He stops and looks at the empty space, wondering if it was a failure since nothing obvious happened. Mei shakes her head and tells him that shouldn't be the case. She points a finger toward a spot in the distance and asks Haru to try cutting that target over there instead. Haru looks at the target Mei is pointing at and instantly panics. He stammers, realizing it's a solid stack of iron ingots, and yells that cutting through that is obviously impossible. Mei doesn't seem too worried. She admits she doesn't know for certain but tells him that if the sword is the real deal, it will definitely cut through. Haru decides to stop overthinking it. He sighs and figures he'll just give it a try. With a light grunt, he swings the sword casually. The blade passes straight through the thick iron blocks as if they aren't even there. Haru's jaw completely drops. He stands there in shock, noting that he felt absolutely zero resistance during the swing. Mei looks at the aftermath with sparkling eyes. The iron ingots have been chopped into perfect little cubes, and she cheerfully comments that it looks like a splendid plate of diced steak. Haru stares at the blade in his hand. He thinks to himself that this performance is terrifying, exactly what you'd expect from a legendary metal. Mei examines the cut pieces on the ground. She deduces that the abnormal sharpness they just witnessed isn't just because of the sword, it's likely due to Haru's unique magic. Haru asks if she's talking about his impact magic. Mei confirms that's exactly what she means. She explains the theory further, stating that orichalcum seems to have a property where it reacts to the user's specific mana and nature, and then amplifies those traits directly into the blade. Mei explains her reasoning, suggesting that Haru can probably do something similar using his impact magic. She calls the concept a high-frequency blade. Haru internally breaks down the mechanics. He realizes it works by vibrating the blade at high speeds to easily slice through hard materials. Basically, a sci-fi weapon concept he used to see in manga and anime back in his old world. Wanting to test that theory, Haru gives the sword a sharp, fast swing. The blade slices cleanly through a stack of stone blocks like butter. Haru looks at the clean cut and admits that it's actually pretty amazing. Mei is thrilled with the result, cheering that it's exactly what she expected from him. She then declares that the sword, which she's named Raikiri, is a present for him. Haru asks if she's really okay with just giving it away. Mei dismisses his concern, explaining that it's pointless for her to own it herself. She gets full satisfaction just from the act of creating it. Haru smiles at her logic, thinking to himself that she really is a born researcher. Mei laughs cheerfully and tells him they should get moving right away. Haru agrees, but he stops her for a moment. He holds up a mask and tells her to wait while he puts it on. Now wearing the mask, he mentally shifts gears. He reminds himself that when he's working as an adventurer, he isn't the noble Eberhard. Haru explains how his persona works. The moment he puts on that silver mask, he transforms into the mysterious adventurer known as the Silver Comet. He notes that there are actually two reasons for that specific nickname. First, he says it comes from the silver appearance of his armor, the Aegis. Second, it's because he appeared on the scene suddenly and brilliantly like a comet, a rookie who made a huge impact out of nowhere. Ready to get to work, Haru tells Mei it's time to go. Mei agrees enthusiastically and they head out into the town together. As they walk through the streets, they catch the attention of some local adventurers. A blonde guy panics the second he sees the mask, shouting that it's silver. His dark-haired friend, however, is more focused on Mei and asks who the girl next to him is. The dark-haired guy likes what he sees and says he might go talk to her. The blonde guy immediately freaks out and stops him, warning his friend that he better cut that out because she's known as Silver's woman. Haru overhears them and glances back with a cold look. He tells the guys they got that right, and if they don't want to die, they should definitely stop whatever they were thinking about doing. Moving on to the Adventurers Guild, Haru approaches the counter. The receptionist, Sally, looks up and greets him familiarly as Comet-san. She smiles and asks if he's here for his usual pattern of work today. Haru confirms that he is, but he asks her to let him know if she has anything specific to recommend. Sally pulls out a document and says she has just the thing. She explains that there's a request to take down an A-rank monster, a wyvern that has settled down near the Magic Forest settlement. Mei asks Sally what specific parts of the wyvern can actually be used for crafting. Sally explains that with a wyvern, pretty much the entire thing becomes usable material. Sally breaks it down further for them. The scales are used for armor, the blood is a key ingredient for alchemy, the claws and fangs make weapons, and even the bones are used in smithing. Hearing that literally everything is loot, Mei's eyes completely light up with excitement. As a blacksmith's daughter, the idea of a monster that is 100% crafting material is basically a dream come true for her. Sally waves them off from the counter, mentioning that the deadline for the quest is about a month away, so they don't need to rush. She tells them to take their time and have a safe trip. Haru and Mei wave back as they head out. Haru says he's off, and Mei chimes in with her usual polite energy, announcing that she's heading out as well. Outside, Haru takes a second to think about the situation. He realizes that a 13-year-old boy and girl going on a trip alone for a whole month usually wouldn't be allowed by societal standards. Beside him, Mei doesn't seem worried at all. She's just shouting about how much she's looking forward to it. Figuring he should probably cover his bases, Haru decides to go visit Mei's father to ask for proper permission, expecting some resistance. But that's not what happens. The blacksmith dad immediately flashes a huge okay sign, saying that as long as Haru is with her, he has zero concerns. Haru is completely thrown off by how instant the answer was. Before they leave, Mei stops Haru with a suggestion. She asks if they shouldn't invite Lily to come along on the trip too. Haru admits he's totally fine with Lily coming, but his expression gets a little nervous. The real problem isn't him. It's whether the Duke would ever let his daughter go on a dangerous trip like this. Mei assures Haru that everything will be fine since he's the one asking. Taking her advice, Haru decides to go for it. He activates his communication tool and starts explaining the situation to Lily on the other end. He barely finishes his sentence before the black crystal pendant lights up. Lily's voice screams out of it immediately, declaring that she is absolutely going. Mei looks smug, pointing out that things went exactly how she said they would. Haru just stares at the device, admitting that she was spot on. But that's not all. A split second later, a massive magic circle lights up on the ground right in front of them. Lily teleports in instantly, fully geared up with her staff and looking ready for war. She starts yelling the moment she materializes, furious that they would even consider leaving her out of such a fun story. May steps in to calm the situation, cheerfully saying that it's all good since they're going together now. Lily freezes up, looking genuinely shocked to see May standing there so comfortably. Her mood shifts from shock to jealousy. Lily grumbles about having to play nice with a thieving cat, clearly annoyed that her rival is part of the trip. She turns that frustration directly onto Haru, pointing an accusing finger at him. She scolds him, saying that if he's really her fiancé, he should know to invite his partner first before anyone else. Haru knows better than to argue with that logic. He sweats nervously and raises his hands in surrender, agreeing with everything she says just to stop the yelling. The yelling stops, but Lily suddenly gets shy. She looks away, mumbling that there is a catch to her joining them. She explains that her father, the Duke, laid down the law even though she and Haru are engaged, sleeping over together is strictly forbidden. Haru just stands there, shaking his head nervously as he listens to the restrictions. Haru looks confused and asks how that's supposed to work on a long journey if she can't stay overnight. Lily reveals her insane commute plan. She declares that she'll teleport back home every single night and then fly back to their camp in the morning using her magic. Haru accepts the plan, saying he understands. But then his brain catches up to what he just agreed to, and he realizes the implication. May catches on at the exact same moment. She realizes with a shock that if Lily goes home every evening, that means the nights will be spent alone with just her and Haru. Moving on, the group begins their trek. They hike through fields and forests, making their way across the countryside. After a while, Haru starts feeling the distance. He wipes sweat from his brow and complains about how far it is. May chimes in, reminding him that they have to cover a full 350 kilometers. Lily is already over it. She sighs deeply, complaining about the boredom and asking if there is anything they can do to kill time. Seeing an opportunity, Haru turns to May with a sharp look. He checks that the coast is clear and suggests they bring that out since no one is watching. May immediately knows what he's talking about and confirms the order. Lily isn't having any of their secrecy. She puffs her cheeks out in annoyance, asking what that is and telling them to stop putting on airs and just tell her already. May just stands there striking a smug pose, practically glowing with pride as she prepares for the big reveal. Then the secret weapon appears. May dramatically introduces the dream carriage that races across the great wilderness, the buffalo. Haru is just as hyped, throwing his fist up and shouting that the buffalo has officially arrived. Lily stares blankly at the massive machine, completely stunned. She stammers, asking what exactly she is looking at. Haru breaks it down for her. He explains that this is a self-propelled carriage, meaning it moves entirely on its own without needing any horses to pull it. The concept blows Lily's mind, and she repeats the idea of a horseless carriage in disbelief. May ignores the shock and cheerfully invites her to come on and give it a try. Haru doesn't wait for an answer. He grins like a little kid and declares that he gets to be the first one on board. He immediately starts climbing the ladder into the vehicle. Seeing him go, Lily snaps out of her daze and rushes forward, shouting that she's getting in too. Once they're inside, Lily is still skeptical. She asks if this thing really moves, but Haru assures her it's legitimate. He mentions that it's actually pretty quick and can hit speeds of 50 kilometers an hour. Haru acknowledges the specs as they discuss the vehicle's capabilities. May explains that, tentatively speaking, the machine can output a top speed of around 70 kilometers an hour. She decides actions speak louder than words, suggesting they actually take it out for a run to see what it can do. With a huge smile on her face, May shouts out the order to move out, announcing their departure. Inside the cabin, Haru is pleasantly surprised by the quality of the ride. He beams, noting just how comfortable it actually is. Lily leans out the window to talk to the driver, telling May that she really is amazing after all. May completely melts at the compliment, happily shouting about how she just got praised. May then directs their attention to the amenities, letting them know they can help themselves to the drinks inside the cold storage unit installed in the carriage. They don't waste any time and a bottle gets popped open immediately. It turns into a full-on road trip party. Haru holds up a bottle while Lily enjoys a drink, and even May joins in the fun while handling the steering. But the trip isn't just about sightseeing. When trouble shows up, Haru leaps from the moving vehicle, slicing through a monster with a clean sword strike. By nightfall, the fun has turned into work. Lily stands there holding a bloody cleaver, wiping sweat from her face. She comments that this is the first time she's ever had to butcher this many monsters in one go. May looks at Lily's bloody appearance and bluntly comments that having a blood-soaked Duke's daughter around is kind of unpleasant. Lily immediately snaps, shouting, asking what she just said before calling May a big-breasted vixen. May doesn't back down, firing back that Lily is being awfully loud for someone with a flat chest. The argument turns into chaos with the girls screaming in the background about sensitive topics and refusing to forgive each other. Haru stands there awkwardly trying to mediate with a gentle now. Seeing the situation spiral, Haru decides to smooth things over. He smiles and tells Lily that honestly, he likes her exactly the way she is. The effect is instant. Lily completely melts, blushing hard as she asks him if that's really true and he isn't lying. Haru gently holds her shoulders and asks why he would ever bother lying to her about something like that. That settles it for Lily. She closes her eyes with a satisfied smile and declares that she'll forgive everything. May, on the other hand, is left standing there looking totally unconvinced and annoyed that the argument ended just because Haru flirted a little. Lily gives a smug snort of victory and turns away, leaving May shocked by the sudden attitude shift. With Lily gone, the reality of the situation hits May. She completely loses her composure, letting out a panic shriek. She's blushing hard and breathing heavy, totally unable to process what just happened. Haru decides the best way to snap her out of it is to poke her cheeks. May lets out a confused noise as her face gets squished. The confusion doesn't last long. She immediately screams at the top of her lungs that Haru is a massive idiot. Haru puts his hands together in a desperate apology. He tells her he's sorry and begs her to stop being grumpy, swearing he didn't do it on purpose. May isn't having it. She sits on the edge of the bed with her back turned to him, letting out a loud, indignant HMPH. Haru looks at her turned back and realizes what the real issue is. He asks her directly if she's mad because he told Lily he liked her. May flinches and turns her head away sharply, stammering that she doesn't know what he's talking about. Haru drops the awkwardness and gets sincere. He looks down and quietly admits that she is actually really important to him too. That stops May in her tracks. She freezes up and whispers his name while Haru watches her reaction carefully. Haru's sincere words hit May hard. She shouts that she loves him too and launches herself at him, hugging him so tight that he actually starts choking. But someone else is watching. The scene cuts to a close-up of Lily, who has an angry vein popping on her forehead as she starts speaking. Lily stands there holding a soup ladle like a weapon. She asks if their little conversation is finished, pointing out that they seem to be doing quite a bit of flirting just now. Haru knows he's in trouble, so he tries to change the subject immediately. He loudly comments on how delicious Lily's cooking looks while trying to walk away from the awkwardness. Lily isn't letting him off that easy. She tells him not to try and gloss over it because she saw everything. But then she adds that since she is the legal wife, she'll be generous and forgive him this time. To prove her point, she leans in and plants a kiss right on his cheek while May watches in shock. That triggers May completely. She starts screaming and swinging the soup ladle around wildly. Haru panics and tells her to stop swinging it because she's flinging hot liquid everywhere. Eventually, things settle down. In the next scene, the three of them are sitting around a table outside, eating their meal together peacefully. After eating, May shows off the interior of their vehicle. Haru looks inside and is impressed, and May proudly explains that this Buffalo model is top tier because the seats fold down to become a bed. Lily looks at the setup and says it's really nice. But then her expression gets a little sad and she mentions that she has to go home soon. Lily steps onto a glowing magic circle on the ground to head home for the night. She turns back to the others and tells Haru and May goodnight. As the magic activates, Lily waves cheerfully and promises that she'll wake up early and come back to join them again tomorrow. May waves back and wishes Lily a good night, and Haru says his goodbyes as well. With Lily gone, May turns to Haru with a relaxed smile and asks if they should go ahead and get some sleep. Haru suddenly flips out. He points a finger at her in a panic, yelling for her to wait and asking if she seriously intends to go to sleep without taking a bath first. May looks totally confused by his reaction. She reminds him that the Buffalo is just a vehicle, so naturally it doesn't have a bathtub installed in it. Haru isn't taking no for an answer. He shouts that if there isn't one, they just have to make one, and immediately asks May if she can use water magic. May flinches and yells back that it's impossible. She reveals that she can only use earth magic, so creating water is out of the question. Haru refuses to give up on his bath. He suggests they just take the drinking water stored in the vehicle and boil it, figuring they have plenty of supply. May agrees that the water supply exists, but she looks thoughtful as she notes that they'll still need to construct a bathtub using her earth magic to hold it all. May brings up a logistical issue, asking Haru what he plans to do for fuel since boiling that much water requires a lot of heat. Haru isn't worried in the slightest. He declares that he'll handle the firewood himself and immediately shifts into a combat stance, activating the Northern General War God style, back technique. Focusing his magic, he initiates the internal type. Clad form wrapping his hand in energy. With a single powerful motion, he unleashes the technique, chopping through the timber with the force of a blade. A massive pile of chopped wood lands with a heavy thud, and just like that, the firewood supply is completely stocked. May watches the display with a mix of shock and admiration. She wonders how to even describe it, eventually just noting that his passion for this is absolutely amazing. Haru clenches his fist with intense determination and shouts that the bath is the one thing he will never, ever compromise on. A little while later, Haru gets his wish. He's soaking in the makeshift tub under the moonlight, remarking that a bath is exactly what he needed to cleanse his soul. But his peace is interrupted when he hears a rustling sound from the bushes. He looks over and spots a silhouette approaching through the steam. It's May, and she's clearly prepared for a bath herself. Haru completely loses his cool, stammering out her name and panicking as he realizes she might actually be planning to join him in the tub. May doesn't hesitate, she hops right into the bath with him, politely announcing her intrusion like she's just entering a room. But her entrance isn't exactly graceful. She lets out a yelp as her foot slips on the wet surface. She cries out in pain and immediately starts apologizing to Haru for the clumsy entrance. It turns out she landed directly on him in the water. Looking up with genuine concern on her face, she asks Haru if he's hurt anywhere. Haru is sweating bullets trying to maintain his composure. He stammers that he's physically fine, but then admits that other parts of him aren't doing so well, specifically his sanity and a certain part of his anatomy reacting to the contact. A heavy, awkward silence falls over the tub as they just sit there in the moonlight. May finally breaks the tension with a nervous laugh. She blushes and admits that, actually, even she finds this situation pretty embarrassing now that she's in it. Moving on to the next morning, things have escalated. They're in bed and Haru looks like a zombie. He stares blankly at the ceiling, noting that he didn't get a single second of sleep because May spent the whole night clinging to him like a vice. To make matters worse for his heart rate, May shifts in her sleep and snuggles even closer, causing Haru to panic all over again. The romantic tension gets shattered instantly when Lily bursts into the room. She starts banging a ladle against a frying pan, demanding to know why they're oversleeping and yelling at them to get up for breakfast right now. Lily isn't having any of Haru's grogginess. She tells him to quit making noises like a zombie, and before he can process that, she casts an ice water shower spell right on top of him. Haru gets blasted with freezing water. He screams in shock at the sudden cold as it wakes him up instantly. Without missing a beat, Lily smiles cheerfully and announces that breakfast is ready, acting like she didn't just waterboard him. Moving outside to the campsite, Haru steps out of the carriage and tells Lily good morning. May is standing there too, politely offering her morning greetings. May looks incredibly refreshed and happy. She beams, mentioning that the bed was super fluffy and she slept way better than she expected. Haru, on the other hand, looks like a wreck with heavy bags under his eyes. He glares at May, thinking about how she is the specific reason he didn't get any sleep at all. Lily presents the food on a plate. She explains that today's menu features sautéed orc meat paired with Caesar salad sandwiches. She adds that there's also orc bone consommé soup to go with it. Haru looks impressed by the spread, noting that it's pretty luxurious for a camping breakfast, almost like something a noble would eat. Lily gives him a flat look. She asks what the heck the eldest son of a great noble family is talking about, calling out the irony of his comment. With the food ready, May, Haru, and Lily all clasp their hands together. They offer gratitude to nature before digging into their meal. Haru bites into his sandwich and instantly perks up, declaring that he is incredibly happy to be eating such delicious food. Beside him, May sips her drink with a contented, warm expression. Lily holds her cheeks and blushes at the compliment. She tells Haru to stop it because he is making her feel embarrassed. May shifts the topic to their schedule. She points out that if their journey proceeds smoothly, they should arrive at the destination village sometime past noon today. Haru, however, looks completely drained. He apologizes to the group, explaining that he couldn't sleep much yesterday, so he plans to set his sonar magic to automatic mode so he can catch a nap. He takes a sheet of paper with a magic circle drawn on it and slaps it onto the wall of the carriage, asking them to let him sleep for a while. Focusing on the magic circle, Haru modifies the rune arrangement. He tweaks the magic formula so that it will send a sound directly into his brain if it detects a living thing, even while he's asleep. He fine-tunes the settings further, configuring the alarm to only go off if a B-rank monster or higher appears nearby. This way, he won't wake up for small fry. Haru mumbles that he doubts anything bad will happen, but he leaves the rest to them. Before he even finishes the sentence, he is out cold and snoring. May watches him pass out and wonders aloud why he is so incredibly sleepy. Lily, knowing full well it was because May kicked him all night, plays innocent and suggests that maybe May's sleep talking was too noisy. May puffs up her cheeks in anger at the accusation, but Lily just sticks her tongue out at her, refusing to take it back. With the break over, May flashes a bright smile and announces that they're heading out. Lily leans out the carriage window and agrees, telling the group it's time to get moving. The carriage hits the road again, speeding through the mountain pass at a serious pace thanks to May's engineering. They make incredible time, and before long they're pulling into a town. Haru wakes up from his nap and remarks on how fast they actually arrived. As they disembark, May puffs out her chest and proudly declares that this speed is a total victory for her Elendil Workshop's technology. Lily backs her up, pointing out that normally a trip like this would take an entire week just for travel. Lily is honestly impressed, noting that they managed to get there in just 2 days, which is pretty amazing. But the celebration is cut short when Lily spots something in the distance. Her eyes go wide, and she points, demanding to know what the heck she's looking at. May peers out the window to get a better look and immediately realizes it's definitely not a bird. Beside her, Haru looks concerningly focused on the approaching shape. Lily tracks the object from the ground, yelling out that a massive black shape is flying straight toward them. She squints at the silhouette above the tree line and asks if that thing could possibly be a wyvern. Haru immediately takes action, casting active sonar to get a read on the incoming threat. The sonar confirms it. A massive, snarling wyvern is bearing down on them, looking ready to attack. While most people would be terrified, May looks at the monster and sees a flying paycheck. She practically drools as she calculates the market value of its fangs, bones, and scales, yelling out that a pile of holy silver coins is flying their way. Lily is equally eager, but for the fight itself. She draws her staff and declares it's hunting time, asking Haru if he's cool with letting her handle this one. Haru looks a bit skeptical. He reminds her that a wyvern is an A-rank monster, no small fry, and asks if she's actually sure she can take it down. Lily doesn't back down, though she does have a safety net in mind. She tells him she'll give it her best shot, but asks if he'll step in to save her if things get too dangerous. Haru can't argue with that logic. He agrees to watch her back and tells her to be careful. With the green light given, Lily takes command. She tells May to provide sniper support to chip away at the beast's stamina while she prepares a high-power magic chant. May salutes and accepts the order instantly. May reveals she's way more prepared than anyone realized. She pulls out a long-barreled rifle and excitedly announces that her beloved gun is about to breathe fire. Haru completely loses his composure seeing the new weapon. He stares in shock, wondering when exactly she found the time to build a full-on rifle without him noticing. May introduces her secret weapon properly. It's the Magic Impact Rifle. She starts geeking out about the specs, explaining that compared to her usual handguns, this bad boy has significantly boosted power and effective range. It's her absolute masterpiece. Even Lily has to give credit where it's due. She looks at the weapon and grins, admitting that it's actually not bad at all. May isn't done bragging yet, adding that the rapid-fire rate is also top tier as she gets ready to demonstrate. Cutting the chatter, she targets the wyvern flying in the distance and decides to get to work immediately. She takes the shot and her aim is true. The impact hits the wyvern mid-flight, causing the monster to screech out in pain. May doesn't let up. She keeps the pressure on, lining up the next shots to maintain the barrage. Her shots connect one after another, chipping away at the monster just like she was ordered to. With May keeping the beast occupied, Lily begins her high-level magic chant, calling out to the spirits of freezing silver ice. The magical energy gathers around her as she commands the ice to take the form of transparent spears and pierce through her enemy. Lily completes her chant, unleashing the spell Icicle Lance. Magic circles light up the air as a massive, jagged spear of ice manifests above her. The attack hits home, piercing the wyvern midair. The monster lets out a final, gurgling roar as it's taken out of the sky. Lily cheers that she took it down, and May joins in the celebration. Haru is standing off to the side, looking a bit sweaty and stunned that they actually pulled it off so cleanly. Haru immediately gives them their props. He tells them that taking down an A-rank wyvern is absolutely insane work. The girls just stare back at him with blank expressions, totally clueless. Lily asks if it's really that big of a deal. Haru has to spell it out for them. He emphasizes that it's super amazing, like join a high-ranking adventure party immediately levels of amazing. Hearing that, the girls look at each other and grin, finally accepting that they might actually be pretty strong. Later, the group arrives at their destination. A voice thanks them for traveling all this way. It's the village chief. He looks at the young group and asks for confirmation that they really took down a wyvern. He claims he's not doubting them, but his face says otherwise. The village chief is still skeptical. He leans in and politely asks if they wouldn't mind showing him the actual proof of the kill. Haru doesn't hesitate. He tells the chief that's fine, but since the room is way too small for what they're carrying, they'll need to do this outside. Moving to the streets, the group gathers a crowd. The chief orders the villagers to clear a wide open space to make room for the demonstration. Once the area is clear, the chief gives the signal to proceed. Haru turns to the blonde noble girl and cues her, and Lily acknowledges the order immediately. Lily throws her arms wide and dumps the cargo from her dimensional storage. The massive, battered corpse of the A-rank Wyvern materializes out of thin air, slamming onto the ground. The reaction is instant. A villager stares with eyes wide open, shouting that it's the real thing, while May stands by grinning as the crowd realizes it's an actual Wyvern. The villagers start inspecting the carcass. One man points out the massive hole blown clean through the monster's stomach, totally freaked out by the damage. Attention immediately shifts to the guy in the mask. Someone shouts out, asking if he's the one who took down a monster like that, catching Haru a bit off guard. The village chief bows his head in deep respect. He apologizes for his earlier doubts, saying he clearly underestimated them, admitting that this is exactly the kind of work he expects from an S-rank adventurer. That title drops like a bomb. The moment the chief says S-rank, every villager in earshot loses their mind, staring at Haru in complete shock. Haru immediately shuts down the praise directed at him. He corrects the chief, stating clearly that he wasn't the one who defeated the beast, it was actually the girls. The village chief can't wrap his head around it, asking in disbelief if he really means these children. Haru gestures toward May and Lily, who are just standing there smiling innocently, looking nothing like monster killers. Moving right into introductions, Haru starts with Lily. He presents the blonde girl to the chief, keeping things casual. He continues down the line, gesturing to the redhead and introducing her as May. Haru smiles behind his mask, telling the chief that these girls are his teammates and he's incredibly proud of them. The village chief is left speechless, sweat forming on his brow as he tries to process that these young girls took down an A-rank monster. Recovering from the shock, the chief decides that results matter more than methods. He tells them that since they defeated a sworn enemy of the village, he insists on hosting them for the night to show his gratitude. The group accepts the hospitality. Haru tells the chief they'll take him up on the offer, while Lily and May chime in with their own polite thanks as they head toward the chief's house. Inside, the vibe switches to pure comfort. An old woman serves them a massive dinner, telling them to eat as much as they want, and the three adventurers happily dig into the home-cooked meal. But Haru isn't ready to just relax. He gears up for the next move, telling the team it's time for another job. He proposes a contest to see how many wyverns they can hunt down next. Lily is completely on board with Haru's challenge. She clenches her fist and says she's in. May is just as enthusiastic, immediately voicing her agreement to join the contest. Later that night, the team is airborne. May is at the controls of their vehicle, noting how incredibly dark it is outside while she drives. The atmosphere in the woods below is unsettling. Lily looks out at the darkness and says the whole place feels creepy. Haru closes his eyes to focus. He gets a hit on his detection magic, noting that there's a reaction within his active sonar search range. He spots the target and tells May there's an enemy shadow 2 kilometers ahead, ordering her to take them down for a landing. May acknowledges the command instantly. As they prepare to engage, Lily realizes what's happening and says the wyvern has arrived. The group touches down in the forest. Standing among the trees, Lily points out that everything has suddenly gone quiet. Haru explains the silence, telling them the wild animals likely sensed the wyvern's presence and ran for it. He sharpens his focus and warns the girls that the enemy is close. Lily turns to Haru, holding her staff ready, and asks if she and May can handle this fight on their own. Haru gives them the green light but sets a safety rule, telling them that if more than 2 enemies show up, he's stepping in to help. May chirps up from the side, happily agreeing to the conditions. High above them, a silhouette cuts through the clouds. May spots it immediately and yells out that she has a visual on the target. The wyvern notices them too, letting out a deep, guttural roar as it flies overhead. May isn't intimidated in the slightest. She hoists her massive magic impact rifle, aiming down the sights, and announces that the beast is about to eat some serious firepower. She pulls the trigger and the shot blasts right through the wyvern's wing. The monster screeches in pain as the impact throws off its flight path. May keeps her eye on the scope, shouting for the creature to fall. The shot did the trick. The wyvern can't maintain its lift and starts spiraling helplessly toward the ground. Lily watches the descent, shouting that the beast is wobbling and losing control. Haru watches the whole thing with a nervous sweat drop running down his face. He mutters to himself that wyvern scales are supposed to be incredibly hard, clearly a bit freaked out that May's gun punched through it like paper. With the beast down, May is already thinking about the loot, excitedly announcing that the carcass is going to make for some great materials. Haru looks over the massive creature lying on the ground, genuinely impressed. He admits it's amazing that May managed to take the whole thing down all by herself. Lily stands by with her staff, smiling. She notes that she didn't even get a turn to fight, but she's happy for May regardless. Haru tells May that since she did the work, the spoils belong to her, so she should go ahead and put it in her storage. May beams and happily agrees to stash it away. But then Haru pauses, a confused look crossing his face as he mutters a questioning sound. May notices his reaction immediately and asks what the matter is. Haru brings up a practical issue. He looks back at the concept of the Wyvern and points out that, considering its size, the thing seems way too heavy to actually fly. May puts a hand to her chin, thinking it over. She agrees with him, admitting that with that much mass, there's no way it should be able to achieve proper flight normally. Lily jumps into the conversation with a magical solution. She suggests that the creature probably uses magic to amplify the wind. She explains further, theorizing that when the Wyvern flaps its wings, it uses wind attribute magic to boost the air pressure. She reminds them that mages do pretty similar stuff to cheat physics too. The theory makes sense. The creature essentially uses wind magic to force air downwards, generating enough lift to carry its massive bulk. Haru suddenly has a massive eureka moment, screaming "That's it!" at the top of his lungs, which totally catches May off guard. Calming down just a fraction, Haru tells them that if Lily's theory is correct, then the logic actually holds up perfectly. He starts explaining the mechanics, pointing out that even if the object is heavy, you just have to generate enough wind force to exceed that weight. Haru's expression sharpens into pure focus as he realizes exactly what this means for him. He immediately shifts into combat mode, activating the Northern General War God style back, specifically the Mana Materialization Mastery. He initiates the outer form known as the General's Armor, but he tweaks it. Instead of a full armor, he activates a derivative technique called White-Silver Armor, focusing the energy purely on his back. Haru closes his eyes and visualizes the construct, imagining a pair of mana wings sprouting from his left and right. He combines that image with his unique magic. The concept is simple: use the wings to fire off impact shockwaves at a constant intensity to generate thrust. He names the technique Hyoku, and just like that, his feet gently lift off the ground. The experiment is a success. Haru hovers there, feet off the ground, with dark mana wings manifested from his back keeping him aloft. Lily and May just stare up at him, brains completely short-circuiting. May lets out a confused sound, and Lily does the same, neither of them able to process what they're seeing. Haru looks at his hands, a sweat breaking out on his face from the concentration, but he's smiling. He quietly confirms that he actually pulled it off. The shock finally wears off and panic sets in. Lily loses it, screaming and stuttering that he actually flew, while May yells right alongside her, stammering that he's really up in the air. Haru doesn't stick around to chat. He blasts off into the sky, arms spread wide in pure joy, shouting that he's a new breed of human racing through the heavens. He immediately puts the new tech to the test against a flock of wyverns. Haru charges straight at the pack, yelling aggressively for them to die while the monsters roar back at him. Using the speed from his flight, he zips past one of the dragons, slashing through it in an instant. He doesn't stop there. Haru spins his body like a tornado, turning his mana wings into blades and carving through the rest of the flock while they scream in pain. After the massacre, he lands back on the ground, effortlessly carrying a massive dragon carcass over his shoulder like it's a sack of potatoes. He trots back to the group with a big smile, announcing that he's back and brought a huge haul with him. Lily, however, stands there looking completely unamused by his reckless stunt. Lily is looking completely drained after watching the aerial massacre. She tells Haru that she saw everything, and it was so reckless she's honestly just exasperated at this point. May, on the other hand, is absolutely loving it. She cheerfully points out that he had the perfect momentum to bring down those flying wyverns. Lily just wants to be sure the danger is actually gone. She double-checks with Haru, asking if there really aren't any more monsters left in the area. Haru runs a final check. He tells her that he pushed his detection range to its absolute limit, but he confirms there isn't a single reaction nearby. In the next scene, the group is back at the village. The village chief is practically yelling in disbelief, shocked that the subjugation mission is finished already. Inside the office, the chief hands over the official paperwork. He presents the request completion certificate to the party, and Haru politely accepts it. As they head out, the whole village comes to see them off. The chief, his wife, and the others wave goodbye, thanking them and telling them to come back anytime. It's time to head back. Haru turns to Lily and asks her to handle the transport. Lily confidently accepts the task, telling him to leave it to her. Lily steps onto a large magic circle she's created on the ground. With her staff in hand, she activates the spell and announces that it's time to go home. Haru gives the okay, and May chimes in that she's ready to go too. The group arrives at their destination, their boots touching down on the glowing patterns of the transport circle. The travel takes a toll on them, though. Haru looks completely green in the face, admitting that no matter how many times he does it, he just can't get used to teleportation magic. May isn't doing much better, dizzy bubbles floating around her head as she says she feels a bit sick from the trip too. Lily, however, seems totally fine. She looks at them with a blank expression, asking if it's really that bad because she doesn't feel anything at all. The mechanics of the spell are pretty specific. Conversely to the movement, as long as a mage has enough mana, they can teleport instantly. However, the strict limitation is that they can only go to places they've physically been to at least once. Moving on, the group switches to a vehicle for the final leg of the trip. May takes the wheel of the magic car, cheerfully announcing their arrival at Hateberg as they drive through the streets. Haru leans against the window frame, looking out at the passing scenery with a relaxed smile. He notes that it finally feels like they've actually come home. They approach the Hateberg West Gate, where guards are stationed at the entrance. Haru, who is already wearing a mask to hide his face, observes the checkpoint from inside the vehicle. Haru holds out 2 more masks to the girls. He asks them to do him a favor and put them on for the time being. The girls look at the disguises with doubt. Lily asks why they need masks, while May stares at her skeptically, pointing out that wearing these actually makes them look pretty suspicious. Haru explains the necessity to May. He reminds her that the Elendil workshop isn't just a small shop anymore. It's become an influential noble family within the empire, so they need to be careful about being recognized. Haru continues explaining why the masks are necessary. He points out that people are already gossiping nearby, emphasizing that May's workshop is an up-and-coming major player that everyone is watching. He drives the point home by telling her she's the central figure and successor of that development team, making her a celebrity target. May starts sweating, asking if it's really that serious. While she hesitates, Lily has already put her mask on, announcing that she's ready to go. May eventually puts hers on too, but she feels weird about it. She laughs awkwardly, commenting that looking like this makes her feel like some suspicious noblewoman at a masquerade ball. Lily finds the look amusing. She giggles and teases May, telling her she actually looks more like a strict private tutor than a noblewoman. Moving on, the group heads into the Adventurers Guild. Sally, the receptionist, spots Haru in his disguise and greets Silver, noting that he returned from his trip surprisingly fast. Haru plays it cool, explaining that they made good time because they had the Buffalo vehicle with them. Sally isn't letting him downplay it though. She beams at him, insisting that speed like that is exactly what she expects from an S-rank adventurer, proving his rank isn't just for show. They get down to business regarding the loot Haru brought back. Sally confirms she received the items, but explains she can't pay the full price until the assessment is done. She offers to pay out the monster subjugation reward immediately, and Haru tells her to go ahead. A few days pass after their return to Hateberg. Haru is back out in the field, likely hunting or training. He focuses his magic and casts active sonar to scan the area. Haru explains that after finishing the last subjugation request, he decided to dig a little deeper into the nature of wyverns. He mentions there are a few key points he figured out. Starting with their ecology, Haru notes that they are super territorial creatures. Basically, unless something major happens, they almost never leave the region where they were born. So for them to move like they did, there had to be a serious reason. Haru breaks it down to 3 possibilities. The first one is simply that their food source went extinct. But that doesn't track because these wyverns came from the demon forest. Haru describes that place as a literal monster den, a buffet paradise overflowing with prey, so starving isn't the issue. The second possibility is that they were chased out by something stronger than them. Haru doubts this one too. He explains that wyverns share territory and fight off enemies in groups. It's hard to imagine there's any monster out there scary enough to threaten a whole pack of them. That leaves the final possibility, the most annoying one, and the one he really hopes isn't true. He figures it's the pattern where humans are interfering. Just then, Haru feels a sharp sensation and reacts, sensing something in the air. He looks out over the forest and spots a strange, dark haze rising from the trees in the distance. Haru lands to investigate and finds a spot on the ground oozing with dark energy. Staring at the corruption, he wonders if this is the root cause of the problem. Haru wastes no time and starts digging into the corrupted soil with a shovel. He unearths a strange, glowing cube-shaped object that seems to be leaking magical energy. As he holds it up, he confirms that he's found the source of the trouble. Haru looks at the device and notes that this definitely smells like a criminal incident. He decides the best move is to head back and consult with his father about it since this is getting complicated. But before he can leave, he senses someone approaching. He starts analyzing the threat in his head, wondering if the person coming after him is just some small fry who can't even recognize the massive gap in their power levels. Or, he thinks as he turns around to face a burly man standing behind him, maybe it's a strong opponent who actually has the confidence to take on someone connected to the northern general. Haru keeps his cool and casually asks the guy if he's the one who buried the cube there. The stranger ignores the question and sizes Haru up, noting that the boy is surprisingly strong. Then he gets straight to the point and demands that Haru hand over the magic tool. Haru shuts that down immediately. He tells the guy sorry, but that's not happening because he has a responsibility to take the object back and analyze it properly. Seeing the look on the guy's face, Haru realizes there's no way he's getting out of this without throwing hands. The stranger agrees that it's a shame they couldn't settle this with words. He drops into a fighting stance and tells Haru he's just going to have to take it by force. Haru isn't about to let this guy dictate the pace. He bumps his fists together and tells the stranger that he's not letting things go his way, immediately initiating a technique called Blood Demon Mixture. The magical energy flares up around him as he activates his signature move, Clad, enveloping himself in that familiar battle aura. The muscular stranger doesn't look worried at all. In fact, he's analyzing the situation with a smirk, noting that Haru seems to be the type who powers up in stages rather than going all out from the start. They stare each other down, both grinning with battle anticipation. Haru announces that he's coming for him and the stranger accepts the challenge, saying he's ready to make his move too. Haru strikes first, unleashing his landmine field spell to catch the guy off guard. Black energy erupts from the ground, but the stranger is already moving, leaping backward to avoid the blast zone. The stranger touches down, grunting with effort as he barely clears the range of the trap. Haru's face drops in total shock. He mutters that there's no way the guy just dodged that. Usually that move catches people. But he doesn't freeze up. Haru instantly pivots and swings his arm, launching a sharp, invisible ranged attack through the air. The stranger doesn't even dodge this time. He unleashes a lightning-fast barrage of punches, his fists moving so fast they look like a blur, physically battering the magic attack away. With a confident grin on his face, the stranger calls out, impressed that Haru has long-range techniques in his arsenal as well. Haru admits that he's actually more of a long-range type normally, acknowledging that his previous attack didn't work out. He holds up the magic cube he found and questions the stranger, asking why he came all the way to this frontier in the first place. He guesses it's for the investigation of this specific magic tool. Haru decides that if that's the case, he definitely has to capture him now. The stranger acknowledges that Haru might have his own reasons for interfering. But the stranger makes it clear he's got a mission of his own that he can't just walk away from. The muscular guy smirks and asks for forgiveness in advance if he ends up breaking a bone or two. Haru just smiles right back and tells him he was about to say the exact same thing. They both kick off the ground and dash straight at each other. The stranger throws a massive punch that creates literal shockwaves in the air. Haru barely manages to twist his body out of the way. The force of the punch hits the empty space and creates a huge explosion, nearly blowing Haru away. Haru realizes the danger immediately, taking a direct hit from that wouldn't just hurt. Even a graze would probably blow his body apart and turn him into mincemeat. Knowing he can't take any chances with physical hits like that, Haru reaches down and draws his sword. The muscular stranger eyes the blade in Haru's hand and notes that things are getting pretty violent. Haru isn't having any of that attitude. He tells the guy it's totally unfair to complain about weapons when his own physical body is already a one-hit kill cheat code. Not wasting any time, Haru activates his technique, announcing the deployment of the general's armor. Energy flares around him like a white flame. He shifts the armor into a specific mode, calling out silver armor. Aegis as the magic wraps around his body. The stranger watches the display and comments on how mysterious Haru's powers are. But then he pauses, hand on his chin, and mutters for a second. It looks like he just realized something. Haru doesn't give him time to think. He dives straight down from the air, screaming a dramatic battle cry about slaying evil instantly. The stranger completely loses his cool composure. He starts flailing his hands and shouting frantically for Haru to wait a second, realizing the kid isn't stopping. Sweat pours down the guy's face as he yells that Haru needs to hold on because this whole thing might be a misunderstanding. Haru isn't buying it. He yells back that there's no misunderstanding here and accuses the guy of being a traitor to the country. The stranger immediately shouts back that the traitor part is exactly where the misunderstanding is. Then the stranger drops a specific name, asking if Haru is actually the Silver Comet. Haru freezes mid-motion, his sword stopping right before the strike as he stares in surprise. The muscular stranger wipes the sweat from his face, recovering from the near-death experience. He says that based on what he just saw, there's no mistake, Haru is the Silver Comet. Haru lands on the ground, deactivating his attack now that the fighting has stopped. Standing calmly in the clearing, Haru asks how the man figured out his identity. The stranger looks at him like the answer is obvious. He explains that the silver magic armor is famous in the streets, asking if Haru seriously didn't know about his own reputation. Then he scratches the back of his head and drops another detail. He says that on top of the armor, Haru's real name is probably Eberhard, not the adventurer alias Haru. Haru holds up a crest bearing his family's insignia to confirm it, admitting that the stranger is absolutely correct. Now that they've cleared the air, the stranger states he isn't an enemy but actually an ally. He reveals that he was sent on a request by the Emperor, the Prime Minister, and Haru's own father, Karl-Heinz. He continues explaining his mission, saying he was conducting a top-secret investigation regarding the suspicious incidents happening within the Fahrenheit territory. Haru asks for proof of these claims. The stranger doesn't hesitate. He immediately pulls out an official document and hands it over, telling Haru he has the evidence right here. Haru looks at the situation and pieces it all together. He sums it up by saying that basically he thought the stranger was the suspect, and the stranger thought he was the suspect. The stranger agrees, confirming that's exactly how this whole mess happened. Haru lets out a heavy, exhausted sigh. He complains that seriously trying to kill each other over a mistake really isn't anything to laugh about. The muscular stranger just laughs heartily, though. He tells Haru that since the misunderstanding was cleared up without either of them getting hurt, the end result is good enough. Moving on, the man admits he was actually surprised by the fight. He crosses his arms and points out that even though Haru is still young, he managed to fight evenly with him. He adds that he had been wondering where he'd seen that specific fighting style before. It all makes sense now that he knows Haru is Karl-Heinz's son. He asks if Haru has ever fought with his old man before. A flashback reveals a younger version of the stranger sparring with a younger Karl-Heinz. The stranger explains that he and Haru's father used to be training colleagues a long time ago. Haru looks at him with a deadpan expression, realizing he still doesn't actually know who this guy is. He starts to ask for a name but trails off. The man introduces himself confidently as Jet Braveheart. Haru immediately calls him out, asking if that isn't just a fake stage name. Jet laughs and admits that, yeah, it's not his real name. Deciding to just roll with it, Haru asks Jet what he plans to do from here. Jet replies that he's going to head back to Hateberg to see Karl-Heinz. He intends to meet up with Haru's father and report on everything that's happened. Jet scratches the back of his head with a grin, saying he'll make sure to include the part where he ran into Haru and they fought due to a misunderstanding in his report. He tells Haru he gets it and says goodbye for now. But before he goes, he decides to dump the heavy lifting on Haru, telling him that he'll leave the delivery of the magic tool to Haru's dad in his hands. Jet also hands over a document, asking Haru to give it to Karl-Heinz as well. He explains that it's a report addressed directly to His Majesty the Emperor. With the errands distributed, he says he'll meet Haru back at the mansion in Hateberg. Without wasting another second, Jet activates his speed technique and blasts off into the forest, shouting that he's going on ahead. Later, back at the Fahrenheit mansion, Haru is reporting to his father. Karl-Heinz asks if Haru really met Jet. Haru confirms it, mentioning that Jet said he was on a mission requested by the Emperor and the Prime Minister. Karl-Heinz looks genuinely surprised. He comments that it's rare for Jet to expose his identity like that and asks Haru exactly what happened to lead to that situation. Haru looks a bit awkward and scratches his cheek. He admits that actually, he and Jet ended up getting into a fight where they half tried to kill each other. Karl-Heinz completely loses his composure and shouts in shock. Haru has to spend a moment explaining the yada yada of how the misunderstanding played out while his dad sweats over the details. Getting back to business, Haru hands over the box-like object they recovered. He tells his father this is the magic tool in question. Karl-Heinz accepts it, saying it's a big help and he'll have it investigated immediately. With the report finished, Karl-Heinz tells Haru he has someone to introduce. Karl-Heinz introduces the guest, telling Haru that this is Lieutenant General Jet Braveheart from his days in the Imperial Army. Jet steps in to update his status, mentioning that he's currently working as the division commander for the Special Magic Division. He gives a casual greeting, telling Eberhard it's good to see him. Jet gives a thumbs up and says hello again, but Haru completely loses it. He yells out, asking wait, isn't his arrival way too fast? Haru points out that it's only been a single full day since he ran back from the magic forest, implying Jet shouldn't have been able to beat him here or arrive so quickly. Jet just laughs it off, explaining that he actually arrived early this morning. He says he was tired, so he took a bath and a quick nap but ended up oversleeping. Haru brushes past the travel speed and latches onto the other piece of information. He asks Jet if by special magic division, he means that specific special magic division. Jet confirms it immediately. It's exactly the one Haru is thinking of. Haru looks at him with a bit of awe, remarking that Jet is actually a pretty important guy. Jet smiles and replies that he finds that fact pretty strange himself. We get a look at the organization in question, the Special Magic Division. Officially known as the Special Magic Corps, it stands as one of the Imperial Army's 3 great divisions. Jet explains exactly how big of a deal his unit is. He tells Haru that inside the Empire, there isn't a single person who doesn't know about them. Their reputation is so massive it roars even in neighboring countries, making them a certified super elite unit. Haru decides to switch gears to something more immediate. He brings up the fight they had yesterday over the magic tool and asks Jet if he knows anything else about it. Jet understands why Haru is anxious about the situation, but he has to admit that, unfortunately, he doesn't have any extra information to share. Instead of answering, Jet turns the question around. He asks Eberhard directly just how much he actually knows about the technology used to control monsters. Haru thinks for a second. He mentions that he knows the monsters were controlled using technology from the ancient magic civilization. Aside from that, he guesses the only other way would be something like a magic beast contract. Jet confirms that Haru's assessment is pretty much spot on, but then Jet drops a new piece of info. He reveals that besides ancient magic civilization tech and contracts, there is actually one other specific method for controlling monsters. Haru pauses, asking what that one other method is. Jet looks him dead in the eye and says it's a technique used by the Magin. Haru is confused by that. He stammers for a moment, pointing out that he thought the Magin didn't even exist anymore. Jet admits that while Magins are supposed to be gone, the situation is complicated. He tells Haru that the method used in this incident is an exact match for one used 16 years ago. Haru is stunned by the news, barely able to get a word out. Jet continues, explaining that while he did come to Hateberg to make a report to Karl-Heinz, he actually has one other proposal in mind. He looks straight at Haru and asks Eberhard if he'd like to try joining the Special Magic Division. Haru just stares at him, completely caught off guard by the sudden recruitment offer. Moving on, the story jumps forward a bit. As a result of that conversation, it's been decided that Haru is officially joining the Special Magic Division. Haru notes that his mother was a little worried about the whole thing at first. We see a flashback where Haru sits down with his mom in the drawing room to explain the situation to her. Despite Haru's concerns, his mom is beaming with joy. She claps her hands together and tells him it's wonderful, promising to support him with everything she's got. With family approval secured, the next step is breaking the news to his friends. Haru mentions that he also went to tell Lily and May that he'd been scouted. Haru narrates that when he broke the news to the girls, both Lily and May were pretty surprised, but they were totally supportive of his decision to join the Special Magic Division. Then comes the day of departure. The whole family gathers to see him off. May waves enthusiastically, telling him to have a safe trip, while Lily smiles and tells him to take good care of himself. His parents are right there too. His dad gives him some parting advice, telling him to handle his business properly even in the imperial capital. His mom is just overflowing with energy, cheering him on to do his absolute best. The siblings are making a huge scene out of it. The little ones are jumping around chanting about how cool he is, and his older sister Noelle looks proud, noting that he's really moving up in the world now. Even the house staff, including Alisa, came out to stand by the entrance. Haru looks at all of them one last time and thanks everyone for the warm send-off. He waves his hand high as he walks away from the estate, announcing that he's heading out. Later on, Haru spots something in the distance. He reacts with a start, realizing he's finally reached his destination. Below him lies a massive cityscape. He's arrived at the imperial capital, and the scale of the place is impressive as the wind blows past him. Standing right in front of the main castle structure, Haru looks up at the towering walls. He can't help but comment on just how huge the place is. He starts wandering through the city streets. A bald merchant at a stall calls out to him, trying to get his attention to sell him an assortment of dried fruits. Haru wanders through the bustling market streets, where the locals are aggressive with their sales pitches. A woman calls out to him, showing off some freshly picked rango fruit and asking if he wants to buy one. At another stall, a girl spots him and guesses he must be tired from his long journey. She urges him to hydrate, suggesting he wet his throat with some fruit water. Haru decides to go for it and asks for a cup. The vendor happily takes his order, charging him 100 L for the drink. Holding the large wooden mug, Haru takes a moment to soak it all in. He thinks to himself that his first time in the imperial capital is actually turning out to be pretty fun. Moving on from the sightseeing, he arrives at his actual destination, the military garrison. Inside, a uniformed aide leads him through the building, gesturing for Haru to follow him down the hall. They enter an office where Jet Braveheart is waiting behind a desk. Jet looks up from his papers and welcomes Eberhard, noting that he made it. Haru walks in, looking a bit surprised. He comments that Jet is already back in the capital, pointing out that they only just met a few days ago out in the boonies. Jet doesn't waste any time on small talk. He gets straight to business, stating that he's going to explain the exam process right now. Haru listens intently, swallowing nervously as Jet explains that in order to join the Special Magic Division, passing this exam is mandatory. Jet breaks down the structure of this exam, explaining that it covers two main areas, written and practical skills, and the plan is to knock both of them out in a single day. He then drops a bit of a bombshell regarding the schedule. He reveals that the official exam date just happens to be tomorrow. He admits it's short notice, but he wants Haru to jump right in and participate. Haru is caught a little off guard by the tight turnaround. He just blinks, repeating the word tomorrow to himself as the reality of the deadline sinks in. Jet confirms the timeline, stating that things kick off at 9 in the morning sharp. He tells Haru to report back to the garrison then. Haru doesn't complain about the suddenness of it all. He just nods and tells Jet he understands. Jet looks pleased with that response. He cracks a smile and says he's looking forward to seeing what Haru can do. Later that day, Haru heads to his accommodation. It turns out the Fahrenheit family actually has a villa right there in the imperial capital. When he arrives, he gets the full VIP treatment. A whole squad of servants and maids is lined up outside the entrance, bowing deeply and welcoming Master Eberhard to the residence. Haru handles the formal greeting with a smile. He addresses the staff, saying it's nice to meet everyone, and introduces himself properly as Eberhard Karl-Heinz von Flensburg Fahrenheit. He keeps it friendly, explaining that he'll likely be bouncing back and forth between Hateberg and the capital for a while, so he's counting on their help during his stays. Haru definitely prioritizes his rest. He gets a solid night's sleep, scarfs down a good breakfast, and gets sent off by the maids at the villa with a polite bow. He shows up at the exam venue and gives a casual wave, wishing Jet a good morning. Jet turns around, surprised to see him there already. He comments on Haru being early and asks if he managed to get enough studying done. Haru points a finger up confidently and drops the truth, he didn't study for even a second. But he adds that if it's just the Imperial Academy entrance level, he'll figure it out somehow. Jet just laughs it off with a wink. He tells Haru that taking time to study is important, pointing out that there are still about 10 minutes left before assembly starts. Haru just sweats nervously at that suggestion, claiming that time didn't exactly exist for him, probably because he spent it all sleeping and eating. Moving inside, Haru takes his seat in the exam hall as the door clicks shut. Instead of last-minute cramming, he immediately faceplants onto the desk and falls asleep. A bit later, Jet addresses the room, calling for the attention of the young ones. He holds up a document and announces that time is up. He declares the start of the written exam and says he's going to explain the rules one more time for confirmation. Jet starts laying down the ground rules for the entrance exam. He explains that acceptance depends on passing two specific sections, the written test and the practical skills portion. He clarifies that every subject has a minimum score requirement, so if the total points don't hit the mark, it's an automatic fail. Haru raises a hand and asks what exactly the practical exam involves. Jet answers that candidates have a choice. They can either engage in direct combat with an examiner, or they can choose to demonstrate a specific magic specialty under certain conditions. Haru looks a bit puzzled and asks for clarification on what those specific conditions actually are. Jet explains that the most standard condition is a strict time limit. He warns that even if a spell has massive power, it's a fail if it takes forever to cast. Haru nods, saying he understands the logic. With the explanations out of the way, Jet decides to get things moving. He announces a 90-minute time limit for the written portion and yells for everyone to begin. Time ticks away on the clock until the limit is reached. Jet calls out for everyone to stop writing. He announces that the practical exam will kick off at 11 o'clock sharp. He tells the students to head to the first training ground 15 minutes before the start time, which means they need to come back to this room by then. As the written portion wraps up, Haru turns to a girl sitting near him. He casually calls out to her, asking how she did on the test they just finished. Haru looks at the girl as she gives her name, repeating it back to make sure he got it right. It's Iris. She introduces herself fully as Iris Steinfeld and tells him it's nice to meet him. Haru introduces himself in return. He gives his noble name Eberhard but tells her that Haru is fine to use. Iris decides she likes Haru better anyway. Haru tells her that works for him, she can call him whatever she wants. Then Iris drops a bit of a bomb about her exam performance. With a calm look on her face, she admits she completely tossed the written test aside. Haru looks totally shocked by this admission. Iris clarifies that she plans to cover the point deficit entirely with the practical skills portion, but Haru can't believe she's taking such a huge risk. Just then, Jet steps in to move things along. He notes that everyone is on time and orders them to head out to the first training ground. The group arrives outside a massive hangar-like structure. Jet announces that this is their destination. Inside, Jet walks them across the ground, explaining the setup. He points out that the floor is made of soil, which means that even if they tear it up with magic, it can be easily repaired using earth magic later. He gives them the green light to go all out. He tells them that as long as they don't bring the building itself down, they're free to blast their magic as much as they want. Lily reacts with a sharp sound as the other examiners arrive at the testing grounds. The group of examiners stands assembled on the elevated testing area. Multiple cloaked figures take their positions, including the senior military officer, the small elf woman, and other officials. The examination is about to begin. One of the examiners is revealed to be a female elf with pointed ears and long light hair, wearing a military cloak. Haru or Iris observes that all the examiners look incredibly strong. The military officer announces they'll start with Iris Steinfeld first, establishing the order of the practical examination. Iris confirms she's doing a practical demonstration and says she'll explain right away. She appears confident and ready to show her abilities. The military officer lays out the test rules. Iris can use any magic she wants, and she needs to demonstrate a total of 3 of her best spells. The officer continues explaining the test parameters. If she's targeting something, she should attack the training dummies. She has a time limit of 1 minute until spell activation for each demonstration. The examiner gives the signal to begin. Iris immediately activates her magic, and complex magical symbols and effects burst into life around her. She wastes no time demonstrating her capabilities. The scene shows the training area with multiple target dummies set up on stands across the practice field. These are the targets Iris will use for her demonstration. A young male spectator watches with visible shock and asks what that just was. He questions whether what he just witnessed was a laser beam spell, clearly impressed by Iris's first demonstration. Jet grins and comments that attack-type light magic is pretty rare to see. He seems genuinely impressed by what Iris just pulled off. Jet tells Iris to move on and show them her second spell. Iris confirms she's ready. Jet gives the signal to begin. Iris prepares to cast, her feet shifting into position. The group of robed examiners stands together on the observation platform, watching closely as Iris prepares her next demonstration below. A massive, intricate magic circle suddenly appears behind Iris. Within the formation, someone's legs are visibly vanishing into thin air. Iris reacts with shock as she witnesses the spell taking effect. Iris observes that the person's entire body has now completely disappeared. The spell worked perfectly. One of the examiners analyzes the spell, noting that while it's not a direct attack type of magic, it's still quite useful. The examiner asks Iris how long she can keep that spell active. Iris responds confidently that she can maintain it for another 10 minutes. Jet nods with approval and tells her he understands. He looks satisfied with her performance so far. The examiner asks Iris if she's ready for her final magic demonstration. Iris confirms she is. The examiner gives the signal to begin. Iris's magic activates and the circle beneath her feet flares to life. Iris stands in the center of the arena with her arm extended. Multiple magic circles appear on the ground around her, glowing with power. One of the examiners observes that this time he can't erase it. The spell is proving more substantial than her previous ones. The magic circle releases a powerful burst of energy, light exploding outward from the formation. When the light clears, 2 identical versions of Iris now stand in the arena facing each other. She's created a perfect duplicate of herself. Iris reacts with surprise as the examiner calls out to her. He tells her to stand down, apparently satisfied with what he's seen. The examiner announces that Eberhard is next and asks if he's okay with real combat for his test. The atmosphere shifts to something more serious. Iris wishes him good luck. Haru responds that he'll go all out as well, showing he's ready for whatever comes next. The examiner explains that for Haru's opponent, they've prepared someone special. Even among the elite of the Special Magic Corps, this person is considered one of the best. They're described as a battle maniac, and the examiner seems amused by the matchup. Haru protests at the description, asking them to wait a minute and questioning the whole battle maniac thing. He insists he's a proper human being. The examiner responds bluntly that a proper human wouldn't be assigned to face someone like Haru. Someone calls out for Captain Siegfried. Another voice responds. A young man with spiky light hair and a confident grin appears wearing a military cape. He asks if Haru is his opponent for this duel. Haru reacts with concern after hearing the word death match, internally wondering if this examiner is actually okay. An older military officer with medals and short hair reassures him that everything is fine, the guy is just a bit crazy. The officer explains that Captain Siegfried was granted the title of Imperial Knight by the Knight Order. Lightning begins crackling around Siegfried as his alias is revealed to be Lightning. Iris recognizes the name, murmuring about Zeke with a concerned expression. The examiner instructs both fighters to take their positions. The signal is given and the match begins. Lightning crackles violently around Siegfried as he activates his power with a confident grin. Siegfried declares that his lightning is fast, warning Haru not to underestimate it or he'll get burned. Haru responds calmly, stating he's not weak either and doesn't underestimate his opponent that much. Siegfried thinks to himself about punishing this overconfident brat. Haru activates flames around his hand and launches an attack, remarking that Siegfried's threat isn't very peaceful. He observes that's all Siegfried's got. The two fighters clash in a burst of speed and power. The impact forces Siegfried back as he reacts with surprise. Siegfried grins and admits Haru's got some skill, saying not bad. Siegfried realizes internally that Haru is faster than his lightning technique and even faster than the Northern General War God style. Haru mentions this is the first time since the division captain that someone blocked his attack on first sight. Meanwhile, Siegfried stands at the doorway processing the fact that Jet managed to block this same technique. Siegfried analyzes Jet's fighting style, noting that Jet is an instantaneous enhancement-type power fighter. That's the reason a power type like Jet could instantly defend against Captain Jeffriel's ultra-high-speed thrust. In other words, the same principle applies here. Haru activates his magic with a confident smile. Air mine, floating mine technique deploys. Multiple spherical mines appear floating in the air above the arena. Siegfried looks up at the deployed magical traps, observing the situation carefully. Haru comments that Siegfried's strike was quite interesting. Haru addresses Siegfried directly, saying Lightning-san hasn't damaged him at all yet. Siegfried's expression darkens. He tells Haru he doesn't care if Haru's some shooting star, but if he keeps getting cocky, he'll regret it and experience real pain. Haru responds calmly from below, saying if Siegfried's going to show him something, he'd love to see it. Siegfried shouts back that he'll kill Haru 100 times. Haru grins and calls out to Jet, apologizing in advance. He says sorry and adds that if he breaks something by accident, Jet should forgive him. Siegfried suddenly realizes something dangerous is about to happen and shouts for Haru to wait, demanding to know what he's planning to do. Haru's expression sharpens as he stares across the arena at Siegfried in the distance. The two fighters size each other up before the final clash. Haru explodes forward with incredible speed. Siegfried braces himself, preparing to meet the incoming assault head-on. The two collide with devastating force. Haru unleashes his technique Reppu, the Gale Wind Strike. The impact creates a massive explosion that rocks the entire arena. Up on the observation platform, one of the examiners shouts for them to stop the fight. The small elf examiner calls out urgently as the dust settles. The examiner orders someone to check on Captain Siegfried's condition. The aerial view shows a massive crater blown into the arena floor from the impact. Siegfried lies motionless in the debris. A female examiner assesses Siegfried's injuries. She reports that in addition to a concussion, he has multiple fractures and cracks throughout his entire body, but there's no life-threatening damage. Siegfried lies unconscious on the ground, eyes closed. Someone comments that he managed to avoid a direct hit, praising him as expected of the fastest man. An observer analyzes what just happened, noting that Haru has close combat ability, defense, long-range attacks, and even area suppression carpet bombing techniques. The variety of methods at his disposal is staggering. The observer concludes that Haru is like a human fortress. Someone echoes the phrase in disbelief, a human fortress. The narration reflects that the Reppu technique was Haru's first time using it in actual combat, but even he thinks it turned out to be an excellent move. The small elf examiner stands on the upper floor looking down at the arena. She tells Haru that there are tons of people stronger than him in the special magic corps. Haru's expression grows more serious as her words sink in. The thought crosses his mind that he still has a long way to go and needs to push himself even further.